Okay, everybody, it's just gone 7 o'clock and we'll start this evening's meeting. So welcome to tonight's overview and scrutiny meeting. Welcome to all the members of the public who are here. It's good to have an audience, so thank you for coming. We'll go straight on. Oh, I was just going to say the meeting is being broadcast live on Zoom, and all panel members, committee members are in the room. So the meeting isn't considered to be hybrid. So we're going to go straight to the agenda. We'll go for apologies for absence and substitutions. We have 3. We have Councillor Kelly for Councillor Mohammed, Councillor Kingston for Councillor Tai, Councillor Summers for Councillor Hamidi. So thank you for volunteering to step in. Declarations of interest. Members are encouraged to make any declarations of interest. Do we have any? None. Thank you very much. Item 3, matters to be considered in private. There are none, as far as we know. Thank you. And then we have item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of July, 2023. Everybody happy with them? Are they agreed? Excellent, thank you very much. Now we're going to go straight into one of the main items of the agenda, which is the call-in for the creation of the regional park. I'm going to quickly explain how we're going to go through the order of business, and we'll crack on with the actual call-in. So we will start off with speeches from the 2 callers in, Councillors Hirsch and Gallant. We have 2 members of the public who've asked to speak. We have Leslie Glancy and Harry Zepper, and that will then be who have 3 minutes each to speak, and that then will be followed by speeches from Councillors Costigan and Newstub, again 3 minutes each. We will then have questions from the committee members to the callers in and the portfolio holders. And that will then, after the questions are finished, we will have a sum up from the callers in, then a sum up from the portfolio holders, at which point the portfolio holders will leave the room, and then the members of the committee will have a discussion, and at the end we'll make a decision whether to refer the cabinet item back to cabinet or to allow it to go through. So if we can start off with Councillors Hirsch and Gallant.
Leslie and Henry to come up.
Oh, and if Leslie and Henry can come up as well. We'll have the first 4 speakers. Thank you. So, I just remember everybody, it's going to be 3 minutes each. We will keep to time. So at 3 minutes, we'll ask you to stop. We'll give a little bit of leeway by a few seconds, but after what happened to the previous call-in, let's keep it to 3 minutes time. Thank you very much. Councillor, are you ready?
I am ready. Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm opening actually with saying that the Liberal Democrats support the idea of a regional park, recognizing it's very early days, there are no detailed plans, etc. However, after very limited analysis and frankly some flawed analysis, the announcement has been made to close Percival Park golf course, which I think has been based on not the right data and not the right argument. So let me kind of mention some corrections. About the usage of the park, I've heard various numbers, 10, for example, per day. I've been there the other day at midday, midweek, and there were more than 10 people within an hour. We will hear there are probably more hundreds a day. At peak times, even several hundred. So it's a very well-used park. It's very accessible. It's one of the very few golf courses which are extremely accessible and diverse. It's not a members-only club. You can pay as you play. It's very cheap. It's less than for a cinema ticket you can actually play. Therefore, it attracts a very diverse audience. It's a very flat and simple 9-hole course, so it attracts an older audience and beginners, so very different to other golf courses which we might have in the vicinity. So it's a really specially kind of used and loved course from a very diverse audience. Of course, playing golf is a bit more than just walking in a park. You know, playing in a club with others together has got social elements to it. The golf course has got a cafe, which is open to the public. So also walkers, dog walkers go in there. Even from a nearby home for disabled people, they use this clubhouse to actually socialize in a nice environment. This golf course is very special, and to just say, oh, well, let's just push the users into a nearby river brand doesn't work. This is a very different golf course. It's twice as long. It's much harder. Will be very unsuitable for an older audience, which are the most users of Perivale Golf Park. The environmental aspect of it, it's of course, there was kind of ideas about lots of water is used for a golf course, which is not correct. The park actually only waters the areas around the holes, the putting area, so very small areas, the rest is not watered. Clearly a Lido would use way more water. It's also a floodplain. So it is actually run very effectively economically. It's very much supported by everyone active. It's not very costly. It allows a lot of people to play golf in Ealing, which otherwise don't find a home in the borough. And it's obviously a course which is very well used. We have already got more than 3,000 people who have signed the petition for this course. We have got a lot of users. It's not just members. Everybody can turn up there, and they do. And
3 minutes.
And it's therefore a very well used public health facility, which would be more than ashamed to use for unclear reason at that point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Councillor Glant.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, the Conservative and Lib Dem opposition groups are requesting that Ealing Council administration reconsiders its intention to close the Perivale Park Golf Club in the context of building the regional park. We don't feel that the closure of the Perivale Park Golf Club will generate environmental benefit. The golf course already nurtures green space and biodiversity. It only requires water for the greens. The fairways are fed by the heavens. We do have issues with the way this intention to close was announced. £75,000 has already been allocated for closure works. Any future consultation, which is promised, we fear that it will simply be commissioned to provide the answers that the administration requires. Now, I'm told that the portfolio holder met the captain of Perivale Park Club for the very first time on the 5th of September 2023, just 1 week before Cabinet resolved to move ahead with closure. Opinions should have been sought well before the announcement, and that would have avoided the need for a public petition signed by thousands of users, a demonstration tonight outside the council offices, and in fact this call-in. So we feel that the closure of the golf course would negatively affect the lives of many Ealing residents. Perivale Park offers a flat 9-hole short course with obvious benefits for elderly players. It's cheap too, with a per play charge of just £8 for younger users. The council has used the June 2022 report to substantiate its case for closure. Apparently there were just 164 members and 408 non-member players, but that was right after COVID. I've been down there, I've seen a busy course, I've seen young golfers taking professional instruction, I've seen non-golfing dog walkers and ramblers. It's in fact a very tranquil hive of Ealing activity. We have questions about the timing of this announcement too. We suggest that the administration is capitalizing on the expiry of the license granted to everyone active to close the golf course and placate the rewilding lobby. The council cites reduced demand for golf across the nation as a reason for closure, but this is no more than an unreliable estimate. At best, there appears to be a lack of knowledge in Cabinet about golf, and at worst, I sense a corporate view that golf is some kind of elitist minority sport. Now, I've seen with my own eyes that Perivale Park Golf Club entertains a fully diverse cross-section of Ealing. The aim of closing the golf club is not clear. An open golf course like this can exist within a regional park. Management and users will be quite happy to consider minor changes to the course if necessary. The site has also been earmarked for the new Ealing Lido and a new cultural centre. This is a very questionable exchange of use, since a Lido will require a vast amount of extra water, concrete and extra buildings. The area is regularly flooded too. Now that benefits the golf course, but it will be disastrous for any permanent structure.
Just time, Councillor.
Just one more word?
One more.
One more word. So we ask for the decision to refer back for further consideration and for the notice of intention to close to be withdrawn.
Thank you, Councillor Gant. Yeah, pretty close to time. Thank you very much. So we're going to go over next to Leslie Glancy, who I believe is the captain of the golf club. Over to you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the view of Perivale Park Golf Club. We are not against the creation of the Ealing Regional Park, but cannot see any reason why they're being excluded from being part of it. I need to refer you to our statement of case and to ask that you read it. It is a thorough piece of analysis on the document produced for the ERP. It highlights the many flaws, inaccuracies, and misrepresentations provided by Ealing Council, upon which the argument to close the course is based. We are a green leisure facility that is biodiverse with protected fauna and flora and wooded areas. Many would consider it an asset. Perivale is a unique golf club. It is not an elite manicured course for rich patrons as suggested by Councillor Newstab, Chris Bunting and others. This is not the demographics of the club, nor of the casual users. Most members could not afford to move to the private club of Ealing and West Middlesex, mooted by councillors. Brent Valley is an alternative, but is hilly and boggy and not ideal at all. Perivale is more a social and community hub that addresses the principles of equality, diversity and inclusion. That is what we are all about, trying to encourage everybody who enjoys the game or who wants to learn and play in a safe, friendly and inclusive environment, encouraging them to participate in a sport that has been shown in recent studies to have considerable benefits, not only for health, but also mental and physical well-being. It is a low-cost, high-impact facility run by member volunteers who provide year-round competitions and social integration. There may be only 150 members, but the numbers of users are more than trebled by the footfall of casual golfers and essential workers. Some of the players from the Brent Valley Academy, sponsored by the council, come to hone their skills on the course, as do many other school children. This means that the players range from teenagers to octogenarians who walk and don't go on buggies. The 9-hole golf course is ideal for them all. People come from all over Ealing and congested areas of West London, as you will see from the table in our SOC pack. It is a well-known and much appreciated venue. The closure has obviously been planned for many months, but at no time have the council reached out to consult with the various stakeholders. We contacted Councillor Mason in May on a management issue and had a response on his behalf in June, which suggested business as usual and gave no hint of the council's intentions. The covert nature of this proposal shows a real lack of transparency, and we are concerned that the intended consultation period will be no more than a rubber stamp. We believe that we are entitled to a fair hearing and will take the fight as far as possible. Send the proposal back to Cabinet and let's have 3 months of meaningful dialogue to discuss with other users ways to encompass everyone's needs, including any potential requirement for a possible course redesign. Closing it down is a retrograde step.
Thank you very much. Just come to time. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Now we're going to go over to you and Mr. Zepper. You can.
I'm the chair of the Friends of Perivale Park Association, something that was set up about 4 years ago. And I'm here to talk to all the other diverse facilities in the park, many of which most people might not be aware of. We as a Friends welcome the concept of the regional park and the exciting possibilities of new facilities in the area. Friends will actively support and wish to be involved with any forthcoming consultation. We also anticipate that the consultation and the publication of recommended outcomes at its conclusion may take a period of years, and we accordingly seek timely assurance that the park will neither lose nor experience negative impacts upon popular sporting, social, and nature facilities during this period. These include the golf course, cafe, athletics track, gym, the track reception, and associated social and park areas. So I make a plea that the wider use of the park is also considered. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Seppert. So we're now going to go over to the portfolio holders. So if we can ask you to move back to your original seats, I will ask Councillors Costigan and Newstab forward. And if the officers could join the portfolio holders as well, please. Mr. Bunting, Mr. George. Okay, Councillor Goskin, you ready? Remember, 3 minutes, please, Councillor Goskin. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. And thank you to the local residents who've come here tonight as well. I doubt there's anyone in this room who would deny that we're facing a climate emergency and a breakdown of the natural environment. And that's why Ealing declared a climate and ecological emergency in 2019. It's why we made climate action one of the council's top 3 priorities. And it's why we committed to delivering 10 new parks, 50,000 new trees, and 800,000 square meters of newly rewilded land in our manifesto. But we also want to create new jobs, to bring new art and culture to residents, to offer sports and leisure facilities, and crucially, to address some of the deep health inequalities that exist in our borough. Our plan for a regional park for Ealing is a way of making all of this happen in one monumental commitment to doing something that I admit is really quite radical. The radical step we're taking is reallocating more land in our borough back to the public. Because in built-up London, we can't afford to have large tracts of land that are only accessible to small numbers of residents. We need to balance the needs of the whole borough in the context of a climate emergency. Now, I can confirm that we, of course, are happy to look at ways of retaining the cafe in the current Perry Vale golf course. And we also will be looking at creating valuable wetland waterways, creating new habitats, and also planting urban forests. But I think the opposition councillors from the Conservatives and Lib Dems, they've said that they are both in favour of this idea in principle, but they both also said that they are against any action that would make it happen. And it's similar to saying you're against omelettes in principle, but you're against breaking eggs. And I think I came into politics to make a difference. I didn't do it because I wanted things to stay the same. And when it comes to the climate emergency and the nature emergency, we can't afford to let things stay the same. We have to act. Our choice is between piecemeal responses that don't make the meaningful difference required to tackle dirty air, nature breakdown, and climate risk, and a more comprehensive approach that looks at delivering against all of these in one imaginative project. We can continue to make small, ineffectual changes around the edges, or we can take a giant leap forward with our plan for a regional park. It's clear to me that residents don't elect politicians to take the easy way out, to avoid making decisions, to continue to let dirty air harm our health, and to continue to allow the breakdown of nature and increased risk from extreme weather, from floods to drought. They elect politicians because they want us to challenge the status quo, to take decisive action, to make things better for as many people as possible. This exciting and creative plan for a regional park in Ealing does exactly that. There will always be sacrifices in any big change, but I strongly believe that we would never be forgiven if we walked away from the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make such a massive difference to Ealing's green spaces, our biodiversity, our residents' health and well-being, and the economic and cultural life of the borough. I commend this decision to the committee and I ask that it is upheld. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Costigan. Councillor Newstub, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak, and thank you, Councillor Costigan, for such an exciting vision for a regional park. As Cabinet Member for Thriving Communities, it is never desirable to close down much-loved facilities, and Perryvale Golf Course has a committed core of users who benefit greatly from playing golf. I do recognise the passion and the love that those users have for golf, for the course, and for the club itself. And I acknowledge the many social and mental health benefits participation in sports brings over and above just the physical. However, in spite of this, I remain of the view that proposing the closure of the golf course is the right thing to do. So we have responded in writing to all of the questions raised in this call in some detail. Here I'll highlight a few and respond to just a few. I will then outline everything that we will do to ensure that the golfers who use Perivale and enjoy its particular characteristics are able to find comparable provision. Firstly, the Perivale golf course is used by an average of 10 unique users a day. And we know, well, if you're not paying, then we have an issue there as well, because that's what the stats tell us. We also know that golf as a participation sport is declining. We also have a lot of golf courses in Ealing. Secondly, while the key aim of this proposal is to create a spectacular new park, it is not financially led, but it is the case that we subsidise each unique user £75 a year to play. This is a disproportionate subsidy compared to other sporting activity. Thirdly, there is a suggestion that a decision has already been made. This is absolutely not the case, and a far-reaching 6 weeks consultation will be launched shortly. We will also establish a stakeholder sounding board to ensure residents are at the heart of planning the park. Fourthly, the affordability of Perivale has been cited as a good reason to keep it open. This is undoubtedly true when compared to the many private golf courses we have in Ealing. However, unusually, Ealing has another municipal golf course less than 1.5 kilometres away, and we commit to help players move to the nearby Brent Valley Golf Course. We do know that Perivale is a flat course and therefore for many a physically less demanding one. Having visited Brent Valley Golf Course many times, it is true that there is a hill leading away from the clubhouse. In spite of this, the largest part of the course is in fact flat. I am confident then that we can create a 9-hole golf course that will be as accessible as Perivale is. And we're looking into matching the price for existing Perivale members and players. And if needed, we will look into providing free golf buggies, free or affordable golf buggies to overcome any remaining mobility issues. I do know this is upsetting for some, and I do sympathise. I am confident players will find a new home and they'll be able to replicate the tight-knit and unique community that exists at Perivale Golf Club. Because, Chair, communities are made up of people, not just places. And I very much hope that new home will be at the nearby, similarly priced Brent Valley Golf Course, where I know they will be made very welcome. Finally, as I have said, the Perivale Golf Course is used by an average of 10 unique users a day. For those users to have private access to 25 times more green space than all other Ealing residents, when we have another excellent, affordable municipal golf course nearby, just isn't fair. It is hard to justify a community asset that benefits so few people when it could be put to better use and benefit so many. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Members of the audience, please do not heckle. It's very ill-mannered. So we will do things with grace, please. Thank you. So because of the layout of the room, we're going to start this part of the questioning to the portfolio holders and the officers present. And then if people want to ask questions of the callers in, we'll do that when people have moved around. So normally we do it all at once, but it's going to be easier to manage this way. So if I can see any hands for questions.
Just to confirm, Chair, so if we don't have questions for the portfolio holders, we can have questions for Councillor Hirsch.
Absolutely. And if we want to ask questions of the portfolio holders again,
Fine.
afterwards we can, but it's without doing musical chairs.
Thank you.
We're going to try and do that way. Making notes of everybody. Okay, I've got a few names. So we're going to start off with Councillor Ball.
Yeah, somewhere in the paperwork, I saw a table of the number of users each year. So can from the portfolio holders explain how it's mathematically possible for those numbers to be correct and for there only to be 10 unique numbers a year, because there are, well, the maths don't work for that to be the case.
I'm taking the data from the numbers given to me by the officers. There are an average, we've taken an average of the number of users in each month and divided that by the daily amount. Clearly, you then have a small number of people using the golf course very intensely. And those are what the data is showing us. Clearly, if it's the perception of the club and of others that there are more people playing there, then they are not being recorded and they're not paying. If you've got any questions on the data, I'd have to defer to the officers.
I mean, sorry, to come back on that. Yeah, so the figures that we have are that there are over 30,000 visits a year. So I'm struggling how it's possible for there to be 10 unique users a day, how that can add up to 30,000 a year.
Mr. Martin.
As Councillor Newstubb said, Ealing Council acts as the client for the management of the leisure contract. The leisure contract delivers the 2 municipal golf courses. We receive regular information from everyone active who are the operator. The figure you've got there in recent years has been around that 30,000 rounds a year. The number of unique users is between 400 and 500. I think currently it sits at about 468 for the last 4 months. So in terms of 10 golfers a day, that's using the unique numbers as opposed to the number of rounds, because we are aware that a number of golfers there, for example, may play every day of the year and others may play once a year. So if you do the mathematics, you can establish that the average across 365 days would deem that there are about 10 users per hour. Per day, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Conti is next.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I guess firstly, in terms of the consultation. So as part of the consultation, if it was very clear that residents wanted to continue to have a golf course at the in Perivale, would the council therefore accept that and keep it active? My second question is around sort of rewilding. Is it not possible to, as part of the regional park, in some element, to continue to have a golf course? Clearly there is, demand, there's strong feeling about it. People are using it, and it's catering for a particular, portion of the community who, I know you've mentioned there's obviously another municipal golf course in the borough, but in terms of, it offers something different that a lot of the private golf courses don't. So is there no way that it could be encompassed in some way, but still have some elements of increased rewilding in the area? And the other thing is obviously in terms of the item we're speaking about next, which is on the Lido, and obviously in the proposal of the regional park, there'll be an amphitheatre. Clearly those aren't green bits of infrastructure, that's concrete, whatever you're going to build there, those other options. Now, obviously the Lido may end up somewhere else in the borough, but most of the sites are parks. So, a golf course is green by definition, whereas potentially what could end up in that park are things that aren't, that they're concrete bits of infrastructure. So how do those two things marry up in terms of the objectives of trying to rewild?
So if I could just take the consultation first and then defer to Councillor Costigan on the rewilding. The consultation will be, I've got a long list here of all it won't be, it will be comprehensive and far-reaching. We don't consult with a view to ignoring what we are told, but it will be a consultation on the overall proposition of a regional park as the cabinet paper describes, and one element of that will be the golf course. And there will be opportunities to have face-to-face meetings, to meet with both golf course members and other interested people, and it will be very comprehensive in that. We will then look at and analyze all of that input. And obviously, we're not an administration that wants to do things blindly against the wishes of all of our residents, but I think we'd have to wait for the outcome of that consultation and see what that says. But we have a comprehensive network and plan for promoting that consultation so that as many people as possible can contribute.
Thanks, Councillor Conti. So just to respond to the other questions that you asked. So you were asking really about the rewilding aspect. The cabinet report, which I hope people have had a chance to look at, did set out in some detail the different approaches to rewilding. And there is 3 main ways of rewilding land. So the first is passive or land abandonment, which I want to reassure some of the residents who've raised this with me, is not really what we're looking at this point. The other 2 approaches to rewilding are community rewilding, where we look at potentially active travel pathways, and other amenities in the park, as well as planting trees and allowing nature to recover, but with intervention from the council, according to a plan that we will agree with local residents. And then there's more active rewilding that could involve more work and more intensive approaches to reintroducing species in our green spaces. And those two forms of rewilding we will be looking at in different areas of the regional park, depending on the future configuration of that park. And we'll be doing extensive consultation with residents, including with a stakeholder sounding board, to look at the different approaches in different parts of the park. Your specific query was regarding whether a golf course would be compatible with this. And I think although there has been, a case made by residents in terms of the biodiversity of golf courses, I think the rewilding that we are talking about is a huge step change in terms of reconstructing the natural environment that has been lost in London. I'm afraid there's a huge difference between creating urban forests and having what are, manicured green spaces. It is entirely a different setup. And that's what we're looking for in Ealing, so that we can deliver against our biodiversity action plan and all of the promises that we have in there to allow nature to flourish again in the borough. Your further question was in relation to green spaces and I suppose other facilities that might be in those green spaces. Now we're looking at creating a regional park, and if you look at other regional parks, for example, in other areas of London, we've said that we want to be similar to, Queen Elizabeth II Park or Lee Valley Regional Park. Those are the kind of parks that we would be looking at. And they, as I said in my opening remarks, offer a whole host of different benefits to residents. So it's not just the green spaces, the wetlands, the trees, it's not just that. There's also opportunities for green jobs, for culture, for sports and well-being. And we want to deliver against all of those. And in fact, most of our parks, I can't think of many parks in the borough that don't already have multi-use, whether it's, some basketball hoops and, or, children's playground, or whether it's great cultural assets like at Gunnersbury Park or Walpole Park. We already deliver against a host of different objectives in the parks that we provide in the borough. But the regional park would be a real step forward in what we were able to provide in one place for our residents in a way that would be accessible within 20 minutes for a huge number of residents in the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Costigan. I just want to follow up very quickly before I go to the next questioner about the consultation. So it's 6-week consultation. What happens after that? Does it go to cabinet? Can someone clarify the process? And then could that be called in at a later date as well?
Not as far as I understand, but obviously we'd have to look at the results of that and see obviously if it were extremely negative, we would reconsider and discuss that at cabinet and take a view on what we would do.
Thank you very much. I had Councillor Driscoll next.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to clarify about the consultation, and I appreciate we're at the point where the decision's been reviewed to progress, so there might not be details about the consultation worked out. But what type of consultation is envisaged? Because a lot of this is about preparing for a future decision. So how were we going to arrive at gathering the information for that future decision? It's mentioned about stakeholders being involved, and it's mentioned about consultation, but give me some examples about how we're going to involve people in that process.
Yeah, I think it's as much as about how we and where we reach people. So obviously the golf course are a really key part of that. We will be doing wider social media, we'll be doing outdoor advertising, we'll be doing direct emails to stakeholders, friends of the park and so on, those kinds of organisations and the golf clubs themselves. There'll be public events around the borough that people can attend and talk to officers and ourselves about the plans. And it will be an opportunity to both, as I said, launch the concept of the regional park and give information out about that along with Q&As and different things, and talk about the potential future of Perivale Golf Course within that. Obviously, we've got our own website, which will be an area we will use our network of community champions to make sure we're getting out to our communities of people who don't traditionally have a voice, aren't traditionally included in these kinds of decisions, which I think is really important because we're building something that we want to be available for all residents of the borough, and we know that we don't necessarily hear from them in our consultation, so we'll make a great deal of effort to ensure that we do. We'll be sharing consultation through local schools to get them engaged and involved and to give opinions, and we'll be doing press releases to local and regional media. I think we will have a fairly dedicated and hands-on approach. This is not something we want to do lightly or to not do properly, because we're talking about a change in terms of the regional park of such magnitude that we're talking about something that we're building as a legacy for future generations to come. And I think it's something that's really exciting, but we want to make sure we're doing it right, and we're doing it for everyone. So there's a whole host of different ways that we'll engage people and talk with people. But really, if we're, and as members, if we're not doing that right, then we can change and adjust as we go along, because we do, as I said, we do really want it to be not a tick box exercise, but one that really engages people in the future of this really significant project for us as an administration.
Councillor Costigan, I'll continue.
Yep, just to come in briefly on that, as Councillor Newsted has outlined, we will be undertaking a detailed consultation on the plans for the regional park and those in relation to Perivale. But I just wanted to make clear that, in fact, our plans for the regional park go beyond consultation. Consultation is, going to people, asking them what they think of the idea, and then delivering it. In fact, we're going to go beyond that. We want to co-design the regional park with local residents, and that's why we're establishing a stakeholder steering group. It's actually about working with local people to develop the idea of a regional park together, to figure out alongside local people what should be in a regional park. We need to look at, where exactly it will cover in the borough, what the geography will be, how it will work, how we'll manage it, the timelines for bringing it forward. All of that we will work out with local people. As a council, we're very much committed to not doing things to people, but doing things with people. And our approach on the regional park is going to very much echo that. So I think consultation, yes, but far more than consultation, working hand in hand with local people in order to deliver something that, as Councillor Newsted says, will be a lasting legacy for the whole borough.
Thank you. I have Councillor Padder next.
Thank you, Chair. Now, my question is also around consultations, but most of them have been answered. Only just one left on it. Who's going to do the consultation? Is it the Ealing Council or someone independent?
So we have a team within the council that that run the consultations. We also have some very senior officers who will be taking charge of that and making sure it's as wide-reaching as possible. But if anyone, it is a transparent process. If anyone wants to understand it, we will be more than happy to share that process.
Thank you. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's really been bothering me through all of this is this comparison with the Queen Elizabeth Park. I used to live out there, so I know the area really well and what really happened there. And so we just had nothing there, but it was the Olympics that gave us what is so great over there is all that investment from the Olympics. And also, I mean, of course, that we've had all that private money that went into the Millennium Dome, which was another huge success that we all loved when we were over there. So what I'm just trying to understand is how on earth this is really financially viable to make something really worthwhile from this regional park along the aspirations that have been expressed, especially when it's been reported recently that maybe we're not as profitable as we normally would expect to be when it comes to cultural activities within our parks. And that's one thing that's come out recently. So as well, I'm just looking at how it's all really going to be funded, how the money is going to come in, how it's going to be looked after the park when we are struggling to look after our parks as it is, to bring in a new thing into the equation. And also just a further question as well about the golf course, is that if we are talking about the USP of Queen Elizabeth, which was the Olympics, our USP is quite possibly in Ealing the fact that we do have a lot of golf courses, and we've been very successful in that as well. So I'm just wondering, is there some way of actually making the golf course some kind of central point in terms of how do we attract people to come along in the first place, especially when we look at the example of Horsenden, which is just up the road from me, and that's a golf course that I walk across all the time. I have full access to it. I can enjoy it, and as well as the fact that even though I'm rubbish at sport, I can even try a bit of foot golf and just have a laugh. There are other ideas, other ways of actually just thinking, how can we actually make this interesting and worthwhile and actually will attract people to it?
Yeah, happy to come in on those, Chair. So I know, Councillor Rice, you've been a long-time chair of the Scrutiny Committee that looks into rewilding the borough. And so I know that you'll agree with me that, of course, the climate emergency means that we do need to take action, and we do need to look at rewilding areas of Ealing where we can identify land that could be used for that purpose. And, certainly in terms of the regional park idea and looking at experience of other areas of London, we have used the experience of other regional parks in order to come up with the vision and ambition that we have for Ealing. It doesn't mean we'll be providing the same as we see in other regional parks, but it's about developing that vision and understanding the art of the possible. We've developed a vision for our regional park, which is about making it more than just a day out. And that encapsulates our idea that you will have lots of different offers within the regional park. There will be, numerous different activities that people can get involved in. It will attract people from different ages, different backgrounds, with both cultural, economic, play, sporting, all of those kind of uses, all available across the regional park. But in terms of investment, and I think it's a fair question to ask, and we have outlined in the Cabinet report that this is only the very start of the process. This is us saying we've come up with this great idea. And what we've said in this report is we are now going to go and ask, and we're going to commission work to come up with a feasibility plan as to how we would actually deliver it in practice. And that's going to take us, the next 12 months to do, because we want to do it properly, and we want to make sure that this regional park is properly financed, that it washes its face, and it can deliver against all of the objectives that we want to achieve. In any big project like this, you need to start with the idea. You need to start with, what do we want to achieve? Then you go from there and you figure out, how do we finance it? There are many options for financing, particularly because we are looking at delivering against so many different areas. And we've mentioned in the report that there might be support from the Greater London Authority, there might be support from different government agencies in terms of rewilding, for example, because there is support for that. There might be support from some sporting organisations and cultural organisations. There is a plethora of different options for funding the various aspects of the project. But we are at this point at an early stage where we're sitting down and sketching out the idea of a regional park, the concept of a regional park, and we will take the time that we need in order to ensure that we are able to fund that properly and that we deliver to the best of our ability against what I think is a great ambition, and that I'm sure local residents will get behind, and I'm sure delivers against many of the issues that have been raised by your Scrutiny Committee over the last few years, Councillor Rice.
Yeah, I just want to come back on this point about whether golf can form part of the regional park and whether Perivale Golf Course would be the site of that golf course. Well, of course, golf could form part of the regional park. There certainly is golf, I believe, in the Queen Elizabeth II Park. I'm not as familiar with it as some. But I would like to reiterate that when I say we have another large 18-hole municipal golf course, the most of which is flat, it's not just that it's in the borough, Councillor Conti, it's pretty much next door. It's a 10-15-minute walk from the existing golf course. So while it is very regrettable and sad that we are proposing shutting down a golf course that is much loved, and I really do take that on, in terms of the equity of provision, either for golf in an affordable capacity for our residents, or in comparison to what other residents are able to access, we're not shortchanging anyone, because there will be municipal golf very nearby. And that could well and probably and may well form part of the regional park. So we're not ruling anything out in that. And you're right, Ealing is well known for its golf courses, but we are also very over provisioned in terms of the number of people who are able to use and access that land. And I think we have to look at that in terms of social equity and the number of our residents that get to use the space and the valuable community assets that we have.
Councillor Kelly next. Oh, yes, okay, Councillor Rice.
Yes, so yes, so what I would hope then, what I would hope that we're not going to do anything drastic to the actual space that's there until we really are sure that we have everything in place, that we have the finance in place, that we have the support in place, that we know what we're doing. We're not going to do anything too drastic. And also, I mean, hopefully if it comes down to rewilding, I mean, that's something that maybe, again, you could just look into how you can rewild around a golf course, as I give the example at Horsington. I mean, that's just an incredible experience of really walking through the countryside right in the middle of London. It's right next door to me, and you even get cows walking around, so you can do incredible things. So hopefully we'll think carefully.
Yeah, I can assure Councillor Rice that, as I said, we'll be working closely with local people as part of the steering group to come up together with how we rewild and develop the regional park. So you can be reassured on that front.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I probably played at Perivale Golf Course about 100 times. I was working out an average from 1999 to 2013 when I lived on Costons Lane. So most of the golf I played has been played at Perivale Park. There's a lot we can do, but you can't recreate the par 4, 431 yards, 6-hole dog leg that golf course is uniquely got. So, and people who play golf there will understand how important that hole is to the actual nature of the golf there. But I want to hear as much as I possibly can here tonight about how you're going to consolidate at Brent Valley Golf Course. You have talked about prices, but I think there has to be a really solemn covenant understanding that full engagement will be offered for those who want to engage. So yes, I just really would like to have a bit more assurances on that field. And another question to perhaps either of you, it's a broader question. Councillor Hirsch brought up people that use it, and the people she was referring to from the care home, I know each one of those care home users and all their staff by name, each one of them. It totals about 10 people. And say I'm not that comfortable that their picture was put in the brochure, but it was there, and it was to do with a check that was given to them. But those people don't go there to watch golfers. Those people go there because it's the nearest park to where the centre is. But would you agree that they would benefit much more from a wider offer? So they're my two questions.
Thank you, councillor Kelly. I'll work backwards. Absolutely, I would agree that a wider offer could be of great benefit. And, you know, they are the local residents, they are part of the community. If we can be looking at facilities that would be helpful or that they would like, they will have the opportunity to be part of that stakeholder group who input into that. There are no plans to shut the cafe. We want to keep that open in its current guise or something else. And again, when we're looking at wider facilities, we are looking at, you know, we have the athletics there, we have the weightlifting, we have all the other elements. You know, there is already an active and thriving community of users of that cafe, as you say. I'm not going to stand up and pretend to be an expert in golf. You know, it has been suggested that because I happen to like swimming, that I somehow have it in for golfers, which seems a little juvenile. But I would say that we will engage absolutely with good heart and in good faith to do what we can to make the experience of transitioning the members and other users as meaningful and as easy as it can be, given that it's going to be a very sad and difficult time if the proposal to close the golf club and the golf course go ahead. We will do that with great care and attention. It's not just a case of saying, well, you can transfer your membership and there you go. I think we will do everything we can to make sure that the club itself can continue should they want to, and that the people in the really fantastic community that they've created there can carry on. And I did say it in my speech, communities are made up of people. You know, these are, you know, this is, as I said, again, this is not what you go into politics to do, but these are great people who have a great community. They do enormous fundraising work for all sorts of organizations. And they really are the best example of resilient communities that we want to see thrive in Ealing. I am really confident that their brilliance and their contribution and the work that they do can carry on. And we will take that with great solemnity and seriousness. I can ask Chris Bunting, who is the officer here, who may well be able to talk more specifically about the provision of golf and how we might be able to create something that's as accessible and comparable. Is that all right, Chris?
Yeah, as Councillor Newstub said, I'm Chris Bunting, Assistant Director for Leisure. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself earlier. Everyone Active is the operator of the two municipal golf courses. We had a 10-year contract with Everyone Active, which expired on the 31st of August. But because of COVID, we were able to seek a 2-year extension to that contract and lease, which now expires on the 31st of August, 2025. So there's no truth in terms of this being convenient in terms of the end of the contract or the end of the lease for both courses. So there are 2 years left on both the operating contract and the lease. So we are in active conversations with Everyone Active. We've started to talk about affordability, and we believe that in the short to medium term, we can honour the price that is currently available at Paraval at Brent Valley through some harmonisation, but actually players who want to play 9 holes would not be paying any more than they do at Paraval. We are also, and this takes time, but we're also looking at potential to reconfigure the course to try and provide a 9-hole option that is as accessible as possible. The easiest way to do that is for golfers to play holes 1 to 5 and 15 to 18, which brings them out of the clubhouse and back into the clubhouse. We recognise within those 9 holes, there is actually one significant hill, which would need transversing 2 to 3 times. So we recognise that as an issue. Councillor Newstub did reference access to affordable or free golf buggies. We appreciate, again, that's not ideal in terms of we want to encourage people to be active and walking around golf courses rather than using buggies. But if that is a way of actually providing an opportunity for our residents to play golf in Brent Valley Golf Course, then we will explore that option with our operator as well to invest in some golf buggies to enable that to happen. So those discussions are ongoing, they're not finalised. We also recognise that there may well be an impact of the existing golfers who play 18 holes and actually then supplementing a new group of golfers who may only want to play 9, and there may well be some issues of crossover and how we deal with that as well. So we're very, very aware of those potential issues, and we're looking to resolve those as best we can. But appreciate there would always be an element of compromise.
As well, it's that there's exactly the sorts of conversations we'd want to have, you know, obviously within our contractual relationship with everyone active, with the Perry Bell Golf Club, so that we're not just sort of adding our best, you know, assumption, certainly not mine, I wouldn't recommend, but those are the kind of things we can look at designing and working out together.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Summers next.
Yeah, my question might be sort of asking the obvious, but it's on the question of rewilding and planting trees. The council has an aspiration for a number of trees it wants to plant across the whole borough. Presumably, you know, if you know, this area would be ideal for planting some of those trees, a lot of those trees, and basically a golf course, you can't have a golf course with trees all over it, so they're incompatible. So is that, can you talk a bit about that?
Yep, thanks, Councillor Summers. Yeah, we do have a commitment to plant 50,000 trees in the borough. And, you know, as you can imagine, in a built-up area like London, actually, it becomes more and more of a struggle to find spaces to put those trees. There's a limited amount of space on streets and pavements, and we do have to look at putting them in green spaces, but there is limited space even there. Opening up a regional park in the way that we're envisaging, it would create a lot more space for us to be able to ensure that we can achieve that target of 50,000 trees in the borough. And I think what we'd be looking at is actually, you know, having more of a forest, an urban forest approach, so that we've got significant numbers of trees in various parts of the regional park, because it's that buildup of trees, not just one standalone tree on its own. It's having a number of trees together in that urban forest sort of setting that allows us then to see the introduction of new species and the flora and fauna that's been lost really from London due to, you know, hundreds of years of, you know, habitation by humans, as it were. So I think that's the approach that we're looking for, absolutely. It's the regional park being the setting for those trees and for that urban forest approach.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haley.
Thank you, Chair. I know we talked about consultation. You mentioned where it will be, but what I really wanted to understand, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating the question again, was I'm mainly concerned about the residents' view. What are you going to do to properly involve the residents in terms of consultation? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Yeah, I mean, as what we will be creating, there's a whole range of different elements that will be planned. So there will be there'll be a traditional online survey, but there'll also be opportunities for public meetings for people to talk individually. There'll be information share. There'll be we will use our network of community champions and other embedded people. We'll be able to we'll certainly put posters in the park and invite people to feedback. So I think there will be a comprehensive range of ways in which people can feel like their voice has been listened to. And I think what will be really important is perhaps it's a bit early for that sort of stakeholder sounding board approach, but really having much more in-depth conversations with those who are most affected. So whether that is the golf course themselves or residents who live very, very locally. But we do also need to remember that the regional park, which is the primary, point of this of the paper, is something that we want to see benefiting all residents in Ealing and beyond. So it will be a sort of multi-tiered approach, I suppose. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you. So I've had councillors Ball and Conti want to come up with second questions. Is there anybody who hasn't asked a question yet want to ask anything? No. So councillor Ball.
Thank you. So you gave Lee Valley as an example. I mean, that's 26 miles long, so it wouldn't fit in the borough. But I get the general point that you're looking at the regional park being a very large area covering a large number of sites. So and potentially we've heard it would include one or more other golf courses. So really the question is, why is closing Perivale Park golf course, which we've heard is the most accessible golf course in the borough, why is closing that so essential to the idea of a regional park?
We might both want to come in on this, but thank you for the question, Councillor Ball. So yes, we've used, as I say, the Lee Valley and also the Queen Elizabeth II as kind of guiding ideas of what a regional park might look like, in order really just to for us to understand what our ambitions could look like. So it doesn't mean that we would be providing exactly or similar to what either of those parks deliver. And as you say, Lee Valley in particular is a massive park. However, what it does do is it gives us the, I suppose, creativity. It allows us that creativity to understand what the possibilities might be. We have to start with actually identifying some basic building blocks as to where the park might be. And looking at Ealing, you can see in the map of Ealing that, the previous idea of what might have become a regional park, the Brent Valley Park, that really never quite achieved its ambition, mainly because of the fact that quite a lot of the land in the borough is taken up with golf courses. So moving forward with this decision, and making the decision on that first building block of the regional park, we hope will kickstart this project and mean that on this occasion we actually are able to deliver a regional park that is above the GLA standard of the size a park would need to be to achieve that designation, and that we would finally have got for Ealing what back in the days of the conception of the Brent Valley Park was always, I think, the ambition for the borough. And perhaps Councillor Newstop might want to come in on the end.
Yeah, I just think it's a totemic symbol of the ambition that we have for the regional park, really, I think, to make comparisons there. And as Councillor Costin says, it gives us the opportunity to look at all sorts of different things. She's completely right. We have to start somewhere. These are difficult things to achieve. And I would say that we are highly indexed in golf courses in Ealing, and Perivale Golf Course, I'm afraid to say, is used by a very small number of people compared to what we think it can be used for. I'm not suggesting that they don't love that space and that they are not very, very committed to its ongoing future, but the reality is it's a very small number of people compared to those that we think we can benefit of all of our residents in a regional park.
Can I just come back on that? In terms of the small number, so there are people who casually use it, and we've heard that the fee to casually play around is similar to a cinema ticket or a leisure centre or whatever. And there's also lots of people who walk the dogs and so on. So it is it's accessible to the general public. It's not an elite club which is members only and has fences all the way around it, is it? I mean, seems to misrepresenting what it is.
Sorry, I mean, you're absolutely right, but I think there was a phenomenal. Certainly, I didn't. Right, let me start. I have lived in the area for many years, and I've always felt that those golf courses, even the ones that I later discovered were municipal, they're off limits to dog walkers unless you're prepared to risk having a golf ball flying into your head. Equally, my dog's quite likely to steal golf balls and run away with them, which makes you very unpopular with golfers. So I dispute that idea that they're somehow de facto public spaces. They are not. During COVID, people there was a kind of taking over of public spaces that I think was quite freeing for many people, certainly in the areas of the borough that I live in, where people were able to kind of grow into these spaces that we'd hitherto not really been able to use. And I think that does, it does precipitate a question around who gets to access public space. You know, these are community assets owned by all of us. And the reality that some of us may be comfortable walking our dogs across a golf course is very different to creating something that really in its vision is for all of our people, regardless of where they are, not local people going for a dog walk. They're people who might come and travel and spend the day in a resource and a facility that we've created for everyone. So I do think that kind of is, it doesn't really hold water as an argument.
Thank you. It was just on the consultation again. What the bit I don't understand is, obviously you've spoken this evening about, I think Councillor Costin, you said that you want to go beyond the consultation to co-design, and I think Councillor Newsub, you mentioned that golf could in some way play a part in the new regional park. Why the cabinet paper had to put that you're agreeing in principle to close the golf course to start with? If you truly want to consult, you truly want to co-design, why didn't you go out and do the consultation, discuss with the people from Perivale, the members of Perivale Golf Course, before you came to this point? Because it seems like the decision really has already been made, and this is just a tick box exercise. So why does that need to be included? Couldn't the consultation and co-design process have happened first? So in your own words, people can really feel they've been listened to.
The golf course is, as Deirdre said, sorry, Councillor Costin said, is that initial building block of how we move on. If we do not take these steps, which are extremely difficult and unpopular with a small number of people who are users of that golf course, we will still be talking about this in 10, 15, 20 years. And when Councillor Costigan talks about the Brent Valley Park that was originally envisaged, it is precisely because administrations find it very difficult to take difficult and unpopular measures and then see them through. So I'm afraid that this was the approach that we took, and it's not going to be popular with everyone. The consultation will genuinely give everyone their opportunity to feed into this, but we have to start that debate somewhere. And the reality of actually being in power is that sometimes you have to make difficult decisions in order to do things for the benefit of a far, far, far wider reaching range of people in our borough than a small number of people who use a golf course, when we are very able to re-provision something very similar, very, very close by.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Haley had one more follow-up question. Yeah.
Councillor Newstep, when you said about only 10 people use the golf club daily, a lot of the residents that sit in the back are quite disappointed. I just wanted to know, just to ask you again, I know some of the officers have mentioned, are the numbers correct for that? That 10 people use the park on a daily basis?
So thank you, Councillor Huddy. I mean, we're talking about an average, okay? So we're taking a number that is an average of the number of unique users in any 1 month. And we're then, whatever the opposite of extrapolating is, we are then applying that to an average daily usage. Now, on some days, there will clearly be significantly more, and on others, there will be significantly fewer people. I can't speak for the veracity of the data of the operator. I don't know if, Chris, you have anything to add. These are people who turn up. You have to presumably, as you do in all other leisure facilities, sign in or use your card or pay or whatever you might do, whether you're pay per play or whether you're using your existing ongoing leisure pass. I can only assume, like in everyone active facility, like the pools that I'm a member of, that you have to show your pass or pay when you get there. Is there anything you want to add to that, Chris?
I think the distinction here is unique users rather than total number of rounds played, and that's where you've got that 450 people divided into the 30,000. And if you start to determine that on an average basis across a year, you'll start to get towards that figure. Thank you.
It's not really a question here, it's just a statement. Looking at the rooms and listening to the residents and reading the report. I've received an email from one resident and reading his story regarding the park and the experiences was truly touching. I just want to reassure, I just want us to really respect that. I know the changes that we want to make and I respect that and I support, but at the same time, you've got to, like we said, community is important, residents are important. We've got to hear and listen and respect the changes that we are bringing. While we are making changes, I think we should really respect their feeling as they are hurting right now and letting go something that belonged to you for so long. Councillors, I think it's hard to let go and accept changes, but I think like it goes back to talking about the consultations when I said, how do we get the residents involved and truly listen? And I think we should really careful of how we address that. But thank you so much. I appreciate your time and answering my question.
So two things. Firstly, there'll be opportunity for you to all debate once we've gone. Secondly, I completely agree with you. I mean, I completely agree with you. This is incredibly difficult to do. It's, you know, I had to have received those letters from users, and you know, it is heartbreaking. This is a community led organization where they have an incredibly I keep using the word tight knit, but it's a really wonderful community that has been developed there. But I say it again, communities are people, you know, and these people are, you know, a strong group of people who come together to do something that they love, and then they find that they do all sorts of other great things off the back of that, whether it's fundraising, whether it's supporting each other, whether it is looking out for the guy who doesn't come for a couple of days and you know, making sure he's all right. These are all absolutely the tenets of strong, resilient communities that we are completely committed to. But a tract of land like that, which could be offering community services or could be offering more, for example, to the users of the that Councillor Kelly talked about, there could be offering more to so many more people in the borough. It seems it's for me, it feels like a moral imperative to do that, because everyone should have access to that. And I absolutely, completely take on board, and I hope that through what I've said and you know, the veracity of how I've said it, that I really do understand and feel for the members, and I will personally commit the administration to doing everything we can do to make the decision as easy as possible, and to make sure that all their voices are heard and genuinely considered, and that any remediation or measures that we can take that make it easier, we will absolutely commit to doing. So thank you for raising that.
Councillor Kelly showed the last question to the portfolio holders.
It's a very technical question. Well, I think it's a technical question, and it's one of these things that I thought of now, so I couldn't email. Do you know how long, and I'll like to ask Chris may know, how long Winter Rules is played at that course, and how long Winter Rules apply at Brent Valley?
Not precisely at this time, but I'm very happy to email you, but generally it's end of October through till March. But I haven't got the exact dates with me at this point, but
Yeah,
they are available on Everyone Act's website.
But it varies. It obviously it varies from course to course because of the nature of the weather and the course. Fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So what happens now? Thank you everyone for asking questions to portfolio holders. We can ask if anyone has questions for the callers in. Do we have any questions? Will anyone be asking any questions? We will. So if I can ask the officers to sit back, portfolio holders stay there because you're going to do your sum ups very soon. And if councillors Gallant and Hirsch can come sit forward. Great, all sitting down. So Councillor Driscoll, put his hand up. We'll start with Councillor Driscoll if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. I wonder if you could help with my confusion, because given that the presentation from the calling parties started with, we support the idea of a regional park.
Yeah.
It was a bit odd to then think, why is there a calling at this point when it's about feasibility, looking at options, looking at ideas? And we've had a range of answers about the ideas and the consultation that have happened. But in your presentations, I'm struggling, and I'm literally looking through the paperwork to see a reference that you made in your presentations to the statement of the reasons for the calling. There was lots of things about water and other ideas, but very little with reference to your calling. So it's like you support the idea, but you don't want to have an experiment or to have the research into the idea. You know, I want to eat the omelette without breaking the eggs. Please clarify.
Yeah, happy to start clarifying that, because there's no contradiction between having a golf course and a regional park. And I think the major point is that we are at a stage of feasibility, planning, pre-consultation, but one decision has already, or it seems to be made. So why has that been made? Because there are so many open questions yet. I mean, we've heard about the reaction to the small number of users from our audience here. There seem to be so many questions still open. To have made that decision now seems to be really the wrong time. There is very fundamental debates. I mean, I've been to that course only once for an hour, midweek, lunchtime. I've seen more than 10 people there. So somewhere our analysis is not right, it's flawed. So to make a decision at that point, how that regional park will eventually look like, what options there are, where spaces are to use all sorts of things in a very large park, it seems to be the wrong time point to make such a decision. I think that's probably the crux of it.
Thank you very much. Yes, I mean, if you refer to the call-in, which I'll go back to, I mean, the call-in is precisely about protecting the people who are there and who've the traditional of usage of this place, which is very, very open, which is not just it's not just figures, it's a whole range of users and a very open club, and that's listed as the very beginning. To take another point, we've questioned whether the effect of removing the existing golf course has been taken into account, and whether we've also said that this golf course is actually supporting natural life and supporting the environment. It's a green space, and it's protecting it. So that's really the nub of it.
Thank you. Councillor McCleany.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Gallant, you just said that you don't think that it's a good idea to have a regional park, but yet it is a good idea to keep it as is and deprive the whole community, the whole borough, from a very good opportunity to use all this big space. And you just asking for a call-in for what? Like, why is the reason you are asking for this call-in?
Thank you very much. A major part of this is to put the point across that this golf course can quite happily exist within a regional park, and I'm certainly not against the regional park at all. I actually think the golf course would add to the regional park, and the fact that it's been there for 100 years and there's a tradition that's built up around it, that can actually add to the regional park. Now we'll go into the usage. I thoroughly dispute the numbers that are actually using that golf course. I mean, the idea that there are 10 people a day. I've been down there on several occasions, not weekends, and I've just looked out there and I've seen 10 people at any one time. So does that answer your question? I mean, we think the golf course could be part of the regional park, a useful part of the regional park, and getting rid of it is not a good idea at all.
So you confirm that it's a better idea to have 2 golf clubs in Ealing Borough and not have a regional park?
No, well, we're saying that it's not a question of that you can have a regional park with a golf course in it, and there's no reason why not. That they're not exclusive of each other.
But you are like contradicting yourself.
Councillor McCleany, we're having questions, not a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. You make very erstwhile points. I just wonder why you couldn't make those points in the consultation period that's coming. I mean, not necessarily, I don't necessarily share those points that you've both made. I just wonder, I mean, Councillor Newstab has explained in quite a lot of detail the consultation plan for the 6-week period and all the engagement that she and the team are going to do, are going to undertake. I just don't quite follow why this required a call in at this stage, and why those comments that you've all made, and they're very, very reasonable points to be made, why that couldn't be made in the consultation period, just as all, you know, all the other residents and relevant stakeholders will make in that period.
I think it's very simply from my standpoint, it's kind of why make an announcement, do the consultation afterwards. You would normally do it the other way around. You have a clear analysis and a really detailed analysis. We've now all questions whether the numbers of the users are actually correct and other facts are really correct. So you do the first, the full analysis, the plans, the consultation, then make decision, not the other way around. So a pre-decision has already been made. And that's why we've got an audience behind this, because it has been announced. People are distressed about this. So that's why we think this has to be going back to Cabinet. You know, this was not the correct decision, not based on a full analysis really of the facts.
Thank you very much for that question. And that's a fair point. But you see, £75,000 has been earmarked for this closure. So it's perfectly clear that the decision has been taken. And what the hope is that the consultation will prove that decision to have been made correctly. And the Council of Newstab actually has given the game away a little bit, because consultation won't be specifically about the golf course. It'll be about the whole of the regional park, which is a vast area, which globally we approve of it. But the consultation will be about the whole of the regional park, and that will swamp, to some extent, that will swamp any genuine consultation about the closure of the golf club.
Why?
Because it's about such a large area, and we are putting it to you, and we're putting it to you as colleagues, you know, not necessarily on a kind of opposition basis. We're putting it to you that a consultation about the whole of the regional park is just a consultation about such a big organism. It won't concentrate, and it won't be concentrated on the actual closure of the golf club, and that's what we're talking about today.
Councillor Kelly was next.
Thank you. Really just following up from your lead statements, Councillor Hirsch, and Councillor Newstab's response. Would you not agree that these extraneous, I use the word extraneous, users, for example, the people from the care home and all those dog walkers, do you truly believe that they go there because there's a golf club there that they can't play in because they're not golfers and they can't use and can't walk and you know, would you agree that those people might prefer a regional park to a golf course? And obviously I'm very happy for Councillor Gallant to respond to that as well.
Let me just make that point. I mean, the people, dog walkers and others go to the cafe for finding a welcoming community. And I'm very happy to hear that that will stay in any case, because, you know, it's one of the few cafes there and very widely used. So that's almost not the point. They go there because they find there a community which is welcoming, which engages them and kind of allows them.
Doesn't won't a regional park facility
But
engender
we're
that?
talking, as you said yourself, about a very small group, and of course they will and can engage and use the park as it is now. There are lots of walkways through that park, so you know that doesn't hinder them now at all. And I can't tell you whether they will use them more or less, but they're already using what's there. But I think the question is here about this community which has been created around that golf course with golf players, occasional, regular, other people who join in, which has created a unique community. And allow me to also make that point. It's not very easy to just take this community, transplant them into a different course, different golf course with a different audience, and assuming that community will remain as a community and not be kind of losing themselves in a much bigger golf course. So I think that was my point I wanted to make there. This is not just a golf course. This is actually a community who's got many other functions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor, for the question. I mean, we're talking about assertion, and we're talking about what is there, you know, and this is a community that's been built up over 100 years, and this is a public site, a very, very accessible public site. Now, if you go there, you don't see gates, you don't see barriers, you see an open site, you walk onto it, and it feels as if it's somewhere where anybody could walk in and really not feel comfortable. That's how it's been built up. That's what's there. Now, what you're saying is, if it wasn't there, if it was turned into if that area was pure park, how many people will use it? And of course, we can't tell that. We can't tell that decision. We can only answer to what's there now, and we feel that it ought to be preserved.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Glant again, and Councillor Hedge. Rather, I must say you love calling. Honestly, you love callers. But my question to you both is, instead of taking 1 hour walk or 30 minutes walk where no residents is in the park and trying to get their views and just trying to find out how many people use a park, wouldn't it be better if you just communicated better with the cabinet members and sit down with the officers to put good ideas instead of constantly refusing the good plans that we put forward? Would it not be wise to really write your own? What would you do if you were in our situation, rather than constantly going against every good initiative that we aim to take and also support residents?
Well, Councillor, you know, the way that elections have happened is that you have a council, and remind you there are 59 Labour councillors, there are 6 Lib Dem councillors, and there are 5 Conservative councillors. Now, that is a very large minority. Labour is in control of this council. Labour has the powers to put forward plans. We are there to hold those plans to account, and that's what we do. That is why we use our call-in powers to do that. And we don't do that just because we want to make trouble or just for the sake of it. We want to show up. We want to show up the other side of it. And that's what we're there to do. We're fulfilling our function. We're doing our job.
Sorry, I'll let you on.
Yes, I think we do call-ins when we see that decisions might not be the right ones, and actually reacting to residents and their concerns, and to a community which feels really threatened with an announcement which has been made very quickly with no consultation and very false facts. So that is our job. That's our duty to actually do. So we have to represent these communities and give them a voice in these kind of situations. It's absolutely our job.
Councillor Haley, before I let you follow up, these are questions specific to the call-in. We can make general points about the call-in process, but not now. Okay. Switch my mic off. That's the last of the questions. We are now going to ask you, the callers in and the portfolio holders, to sum up. We've had an hour and a half. I think a lot of points have been made, so let's be brief in our summing ups before we go to debate. Thank you.
Will be brief. I think we have had lots of debates here, and we've questioned kind of facts which were the basis of this decision, very profound facts which we all challenge. And we see that such a decision can really destroy a valuable community, which plays a big role in health and you know, kind of an established sports facility. And we know that Ealing needs more sports facilities, and that's one of the requirements. Why do we want to destroy one which works perfectly for actually a lot of people, not a small group of people? So we really kind of request to retract the decision. It needs to go back to cabinet once actually full plans are available, once feasibility, consultation and plans are on the table, to actually really thoroughly assess, is there space for this small golf course in the park or not? And what are the real numbers of users, and what's the real value of this community which exists already? So the plans need to be first drawn up before any decisions are made, and this decision has to be made by a vote in the cabinet.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I'll also be very brief. I mean, Councillor Costin's admirable aims of creating a clean space, but you see, a golf course doesn't produce dirty air. Getting rid of this golf course or changing this golf course will not improve the air. The golf course is already a green phenomenon. It's been there for a long time doing that job. Just go there and see the amount of users there and the variety of users there and the cross section of Ealing that plays there. It's not a place for the rich. It's not a place for exclusivity. There's a huge cross section of people taking advantage of this lovely old facility. If you want to see something that's underused, you have to look at just the adjacent fields. There's football fields and cricket fields, which are really underused. I've not heard any talk about rewilding those. But so why are we changing something that's well used and not changing something that's underused? And by the way, those cricket fields and football fields next door are the other 9 holes that were converted after the Second World War. I'll go back to my point about the consultation. You know, the consultation is unfortunately, we challenge the validity of it because we think that consultation will be used to simply rubber stamp the decision that's already been taken. It's a consultation about the whole of the regional park, will include a lot of stakeholders, and it won't focus on the closure of the golf club. And therefore, we don't think it'll give a just examination of the closure of the golf club. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillors Grant and Hirsch. So Councillor Costigan went first. So looks like Councillor Newsub wants to sum up first.
I really must refute the idea that our officers' data is incorrect. It's deeply inappropriate. I also would like to point out, I couldn't find any other local authority, certainly not in the London area, that have, many don't have any municipal golf courses. I didn't even think that was a thing, and we have 2. So I've just asked the committee to bear that in mind when we're making, when you're making your decision around what to do. And I'd also like to refute the point that Councillor Gallant made around the consultation, because the Cabinet report is about a regional park. The entirety of the report falls under Councillor Costigan's remit. It is precisely about creating a regional park, which is a truly visionary and ambitious thing for us to be aiming to do. So absolutely, last time I checked, and maybe the Tories have got different plans because who knows what they've been up to this last week at conference, we do still live in a democracy. So in actual fact, what we do with that park is of interest to all the people of Ealing, because we want more and more and more of them to be able to use that as a resource. I think I've made all the points I'd like to make. I would commend the committee not to refer this back to Cabinet, and I would reiterate my commitment to be as heartfelt and open and fair and accommodating as it is possible for us to be, and I'll take that as a personal commitment to the members of the Perivale Golf Club, because I do fully understand and value the community that they have developed and how precious that is, and we will do everything we can do to help that continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So most of us that are councillors in this room, we voted to declare a climate emergency in 2019. And most of us were there when we adopted our climate and ecological emergency strategy. And we have all been on the council since we've adopted our biodiversity action plan. But all of these things are just pieces of paper. None of them are real concrete action on the ground. If we are genuinely committed to fighting the climate crisis, to planting the 50,000 trees we promised, to opening the 10 new parks we pledged, and to rewilding 800,000 square meters of the borough, then this is when we need to take action. And Councillor Gallant, in terms of your reference to the 59 Labour councillors we have, the reason we have 59 Labour councillors is because the vast majority of residents in the borough backed our plan to tackle the climate crisis, to open 10 new parks, to plant 50,000 trees, and to rewild 800,000 square meters of the borough. But doing that, as I say, is going to take more than just putting our hand up to agree a strategy. It takes decisions. And we've heard tonight that we have an over provision of golf courses in the borough. We've 6 golf courses. Neighbouring Brent has 1 golf course. So we have a clear over provision. But beside that, we have an under provision of trees, an under provision of wetlands, an under provision of wildflowers, an under provision of habitats for wild animals. And we have a deep under provision of green spaces that are genuinely open to all the residents of our borough. So tonight we've got what is a landmark decision for us to take. This is a landmark decision, and it is, as I said earlier, a radical decision. I don't shy away from saying that it is a radical decision, because it is about us reallocating green space to all of the residents of our borough, whilst fighting the climate crisis and also delivering good green jobs, cultural assets that young people, old people can enjoy for years to come in this borough. So I ask the committee to have that courage to take that action that we need to take if we are to fight the climate crisis and to deliver on the promises we made in 2019 and again in 2022 in our manifesto. And I ask you to uphold the decision of Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. So now we're going to go proceed to the debate. So we'd ask the portfolio holders to leave the room. Councillor Newstab, not too far away, because you'll be back soon for the Lido call-in. And we'll need somebody to found Councillor Newstab when we finish the debate. So we'll give it 30 seconds. If people show if they want to contribute. I saw councillors, yeah, bear with me, I've got my pen. Got you, John. Kelly. Okay, they're gone. Councillor Summers first to put his hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I hate to sort of be party political about this, but at the end of the day, this is sort of, it explains the difference between the different parties' positions. And as Councillor Costigan said, you know, she got in, became a councillor to make radical changes. I also, you know, wanted to change things. We have voted for we did vote to say there was a climate emergency and we need to do something about it. We do need to plant, you know, masses of trees and rewild areas. So we have to make radical, bold decisions. For example, closing down Perivale Park golf course. The Conservative, you know, members around this table tend to, from my experience as 13 years as a councillor, Conservatives tend to like the status quo. Liberal Democrats maybe also approve of radical steps, but don't actually have the courage to make those, you know, the actual, you know, they might say in principle we're in favour of a regional park, but they don't actually want to make the tough decisions. So that is, at the end of the day, the way I see it. And I'm currently minded to vote against the call-in.
Councillor Ball.
So firstly, the numbers that have been quoted don't correlate with reality. So those 10 unique users that we hear of, even if they played every single day of the year, including Christmas Day, that would still add up to less than a tenth of the actual annual usage. And clearly, in reality, some people play frequently and some people only play occasionally. So Cabinet made this decision justified by a mathematically impossible usage number. We've heard that Perivale Park is the most accessible golf course in the borough. So both economically, financially and socially, but also in terms of its relatively flat layout. So it's ideal for older people and those with disabilities. As Councillor Hirsch said, the regional park proposal is at a very early stage, but one decision seems to have been made already, which is to close Perivale Park Golf Club, which we've heard would be merely one small part of a very large regional park. And the response that we got from one of the portfolio holders to the question of why Perivale Golf Club was, we need to start somewhere. And that's not very convincing to me. So it seems to me that it's possible for a compromise to be found where the golf course remains open, but forms part of a regional park. And there's more obvious public access to walk across the course, and also better promotion of pay-per-play usage to the larger numbers of people who will be visiting the regional park. So I think we should send it back to Cabinet, supporting the consultation on a regional park, but asking Cabinet to reconsider the immediate and premature closure of Perivale Park Golf Club.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Kelly next.
There's been a lot of, say, confusion, but lack of understanding about the usage. I hope this is upheld, that the consultation, part of that consultation, will re-examine those figures. I think that's important to do. But just to give a bit of context with golf, in the summer when the sun rises at 5:45, lots of people on the golf course at 7 o'clock. In November, I don't want to be sort of hyperbolic, but you know, you're lucky sometimes if you get daylight at 10 o'clock. So you know, the usage changes. That's why I was asking about winter rules. That golf course, which I know well, I live very close to there for 13 years. It's actually my last memories of my fit father before he got very ill was playing golf there. He was a serious golfer. I'm not. He was. So it does hold memories for me, but I was always conscious of the standard of the course, and it suffered greatly from weather. I've been told it was designed as a floodplain, i.e. the first thing that floods over when the River Brent fills up is that golf course, because that means houses don't flood. So it was sort of, so it's a floodplain. So once the rain comes to a certain level, there's no golf. So it's always been a challenging, it's always had a challenge viability. I accept when you go there at certain times of the day, it's enchanting. Okay, talking about the users that go there, the comradeship. It's a very accessible, nice place. Ironically, dogs are not allowed in the clubhouse. Okay, they're not. If you bring your dog in, it's got to go outside. So you know, it's not quite as accommodating, but maybe that's an active leisure policy as opposed to a club policy. But those dogs, those people can't use the golf course. Those, however many people are coming in and out who aren't golfers, they just use the area around there, around the car park, have a cup of coffee. Now, we've heard from Councillor Costigan and that we're not closing the clubhouse, we're not closing the park. What we're doing is consulting as to whether it's suitable for a regional park. And given the nature of it, that is near to the Brent River, that's why this site, I imagine, was chosen. You know, we haven't put a dot in the ground in Walpole Park and said, we'll make this a regional park. This place has been chosen because of its nature as a floodplain. So it's very sad. It's very sad, and there's nothing I can say here today that will make the people that enjoy that place accept that the future of this golf course is under threat because of what we're seeking to do. However, I got quite granular, or Chris Bunting did give me some real assurances. He went into detail about how we're going to re-provision and consolidate at Brent Valley Golf Course. So, you know, I got a lot more than I thought I would, you know, but and how you walk it and you end up back in the clubhouse. These are very important golfing considerations, and particularly for people who are less able. So I think a lot of thought has gone into this, and the benefits of having a regional park, given the climate crisis, given our manifesto, and I quite like these call-ins because they actually give us an opportunity to highlight our manifesto commitments. You know, we can, to the people that come here who, again, like I say, may not like the decision, they understand that we are doing this because of our manifesto commitments. So it's very sad. It's going to be very sad if Perivale Golf Course closes. But I think to close it is for the greater good. So I want to uphold this and not send this back to Cabinet for reconsideration.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Rice was next.
Right, so I probably did say an awful lot already during my question, and I will agree with what Councillor Kelly says about that. Hopefully, we can have another look at the figures here because we have got a lot of questions have come up from this. So one thing that Councillor Costigan did bring up was about the fact that I chaired the rewilding committee last year. That's probably I'm going to be talking a bit about later. So one thing I did really learn from that in terms of planting trees is that one thing you have to remember is if you're going to be planting lots of trees together, they're not necessarily going to have the chance to branch out and have the coverage that you need in order to help the climate emergency. So I think it might be quite foolish to try and do that. So I can imagine if you're going to end up planting trees in a sensible way, not too close to each other, that's not necessarily going to interfere with the use of a golf course there. I can't really see where's the contradiction there. I can see issues if you are planting trees, if you are putting a regional park in, there are maintenance issues as well. Even just like clearing the leaves from a lot of trees if you plant in one place, if you want to make sure that it's really usable for other purposes, the whole area, especially if you put in amphitheatres where you're going to have people going in order to put on shows or to see shows. There's going to be an awful lot of considerations to make here. So really what I've got from Councillor Costigan tonight was some kind of reassurance that we're not going to make any kind of huge changes until we actually know what we're doing. We've got the finances in place. We've got people on board. We actually understand how we're going to approach this. And I can only really support what the paper going forward as it is, for the Cabinet paper going forward as it is, and I can reject the call-in only on the basis that there will be reassurance that this will be properly considered and looked at, and also that we can actually put the scrutiny in place in order to make sure that everything is done properly and that we protect the community as best we can do. Thank you.
Councillor Conti.
So I'm probably going to slightly reiterate what I was saying in my final question, but I think the reason I support the call-in is because if we really want to, we're going to go out and have a genuine consultation. I think the only thing that's predetermined in this, essentially, reading the paper, is that the Cabinet agreed in principle to close Perivale Golf Course. You know, if we want to ensure that the consultation is open and transparent and really listening to the views of residents, I think that needs to be taken off the table. We need to trust residents. You know, clearly, you know, there's broad support for the idea of a regional park, but what makes up that park, what's in that park, that should be part of the consultation. I don't think there's any reason that a golf course can't play a role in that. And so, therefore, that's why I'll be supporting the call-in.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll.
Yes, just listening to the presentation of the calling and especially looking at the questions that came back in the summation. I mean, the presentation was that we should completely jettison our government's procedures. And by that mean that if we're making important decisions about public expenditure, about spending money in a consultation, it has to go to Cabinet to get approval for that expenditure. So the callers in were advocating that we do the expenditure for the consultation with no agreement at cabinet and then come through with a final outcome as a final decision. But what we've got in the papers is a clear sequence with it's going to go to cabinet again. And we have to go in staged processes, often with an initial idea, with a feasibility, with a consideration of an idea. And then we come out with the result of that consultation, the development of the idea, to a worked up, fuller proposal, where issues about credibility of figures and all that can be worked through in the consultation and discussions with officers. But we don't upend our governance by allowing cabinet to just spend vast amounts of money on a consultation, which is, if it's to be a good consultation, does need investment in it. We don't do that first and then come back to a final decision, because that was one of the principal points of the presenters for the calling. But that's not how governance works. So we have an idea, the idea is presented, it's reviewed, it's examined, and then we go forward to a fully fleshed out consideration at cabinet, with the cabinet paper at a second stage. And that's exactly what's in there. So yet again, I think this is jumping the gun, coming too early, when we've got to flesh out the ideas. There's a whole range of answers and responses that were given tonight about how various provisions could be made, adaptations for the second golf club that could be looked at, transition process and all sorts were put in there. And they need to be fleshed out so we can make a proper informed decision. But we need that information to make a proper informed decision. So once again, we're at the same point in a consultation, not even thinking, we're going to reject the cabinet paper, send it back because we don't want to think about the idea. We'd never get anywhere. So I think I reject the call.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you everybody for their contributions. For my part, I think the three key elements we heard tonight, which were discussed and questioned, were one of the user numbers, consultation process, and the mitigation use of the second course. We'll start with mitigation. I think particularly to Councillor Kelly's questions, I think we were given assurance and reassurance that Brent Valley, the Brent Valley Golf Course, which is 10 minutes walk away, less than a mile away from Perryvale, will be a suitable, not yet, but will be a suitable alternative course for the number of users. Unique users, well, I think it was made clear from the officer, we are talking about unique users, not number of people using the course. And obviously there'll be different usage. To stroll around at lunchtime on a lovely autumn day, there will be more people playing golf than there will be in December, January, February, and so on. So I think the numbers seem to stack up to me. And the other consultation, we've talked, many people who asked questions, had a long conversation about consultation, and I'm very happy with the responses from the portfolio holders. So I honestly don't see any reason why this should be referred back, but I'm going to ask the committee to vote to either uphold the decision or send the decision back. So I will propose that we uphold the decision. Everyone in favour of that proposal shows. Everybody against? Thank you. Yeah, I see that. So that's carried. So the decision of the committee is to uphold the decision. Thank you very much. So the next item of business is the Lido consultation. We've just had 2 hours of debate, so I'm going to propose a 5-minute comfort break to allow people to leave and everybody to recharge their batteries. Thank you. Okay, if any councillors not at their seats can take their seats, well, would like to crack on, please. Okay, well, I think Councillor Corday, I'm sure will be here any moment. We're going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is the Lido call-in. Same procedure as last time, although we only have one caller in and one responder and no members of the public speaking. So the first part should be fairly swift, but it'll be the same introductions, questions, debate, sum ups, then debate. So we'll do, if Councillor Gallant would like to introduce his call in. I'm going to be a little bit more relaxed on time. We aim for 3 minutes, but if it's a bit longer, because we've got so many, so fewer speakers, we'll go for a little bit longer. But we haven't got 15 speakers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So the Conservative Lib Dem opposition groups are asking Cabinet to reconsider its decision to proceed with scoping a new Lido in Ealing, and I shall say Lido, not Lido. I have never yet heard an Ealing resident bemoan the lack of an outdoor swimming facility in Ealing, but I've met many who were deeply distressed about the closure of Gurnell, and I suggest that its reopening is where the focus should be. An outdoor swimming facility will only be useful for 20-odd weeks in any year, therefore won't make a significant contribution to that long list of desired health outcomes. The Lido will have a significant carbon footprint, whether or not it's able to exchange heat with a data center. And that is an interesting idea, but it needs much more elaboration, and you'll note that that is in our call-in. A Lido facility will likely involve construction on an existing green space, that is building with concrete, new buildings, and not to mention the need for a vast amount of water. We must have a clear idea of the environmental damage the construction of the Lido might cause to local flora and fauna. The Lido is likely to benefit only local residents. People won't make a trip across the borough if they risk finding the facility closed due to that unpredictable British weather. Parking provision is not mentioned in the Cabinet paper, though it's a key element of the success of the much praised Hillingdon Sport and Leisure Complex. Accessibility to the Lido, and for Ealing families, that means by private or public transport, should be a primary consideration. The proposed sites include some of Ealing's most beautiful parks. Ealing Common has been suggested and confirmed as a potential site, yet it is ancient common land. The council just lost a case to residents upholding a 19th century charter guaranteeing community access to the Victoria Hall. Ealing Common is protected by even older laws. The council needs to be ready for an avalanche of legal action if it pursues this option. We question whether this is in fact a serious proposition at all. It was cited as an aim in the 22-26 council plan, but in reality, it just popped up on the Cabinet agenda in September 2023. And we are concerned that its appearance is designed to deflect attention from a lack of progress at Gurnell. We also question the Lido's financial viability, notwithstanding those dark promises of funding through SIL, Section 106 and grants. In fact, council will likely have to service borrowings of 40 to 50 million plus pay high annual running costs. Commercial revenue, and that's a major element of the Hillingdon complex, is barely considered. If it were all words and enthusiasm from a portfolio holder who loves swimming, we'd not be calling it in. But this cabinet decision comes with a hefty price tag of £250,000 for commissioning more study work, surveys, searches, and procurement options. And we say simply, don't spend that £250,000 if there's no real possibility of ever building the Lido. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glant. Councillor Newstub, your turn to.
Thank you, Chair. So rather excitingly, I've got a deck that I'd love to share with you. I think this is going to be perhaps less somber than my response to the last call-in, without being playing into Councillor Glant's slightly bizarre assumption that that will mean that we're not doing it. So really all this cabinet report does is authorise our officers to conduct feasibility studies, to look at a preferred location, establish a sounding board, and assist in the direction of the project. Does seem, and it is worth saying, and perhaps I'm overstepping, Chair, an extraordinary waste of time for everyone here to bring this in a call-in, when most of the questions were in fact answered in a cabinet meeting that Councillor Gallant was at, and B, anything that wasn't, I could have happily responded to in an email. We have had an extraordinarily positive response to announcing our plans to investigate siting a Lido in the borough. This call-in, it seems, churlish at best and time-waiting at worst. Well, perhaps just another example of the Tory tin ear after the week they've had in Manchester. Perhaps Councillor Gallant is looking for a little distraction or some R&R, in which case I suggest you get comfortable in your deck chair, get your sun cream on, and sit back for an update on the Lido revolution that is sweeping the UK. Now, Jack, I think you're in charge of the slides. I'm going to go through each of the points raised. I think what we'll cover the points that Councillor Gallant has made in his speech just now, but specifically related to the points in the call-in. To question whether a new outdoor Lido would meet Ealing Council's desired health outcomes seems a pretty odd question. We know from the Ealing Indoor and Outdoor Facility Strategy and Action Plan that we have a current and future need for more pools, which I will come on to. This will clearly contribute to meeting the demand for more space. Swim England says that swimming pools save the NHS around 400 million a year in care services, which is also great and would contribute to those values. And the benefits of swimming and open water swimming in particular are well documented. It is interesting to note that Lidos, the last time that we had a flurry of Lidos in the UK was the 1930s, which were introduced as a public health measure after years of austerity, starting to sound very familiar, and really was something that democratized access to swimming and created areas for socializing and relaxing. And a huge number of pools were built in London and elsewhere, and sadly, many of them have become derelict. And really what became a public health movement in the 30s introduced the concept of leisure, hitherto reserved for the aristocracy, to everyday folk. And as post-war, foreign holidays became more available, many fell into disrepair. And now we are seeing an exciting reversal, as many are saved from dereliction and new pools are planned. If you wouldn't mind going on to the next slide, Jack, thank you. So the next one is to question whether officers advise that a Lido facility could ever be built on Ealing's public parks or common land. And we have provided a long list of sites appended to the Cabinet report, a list of potential sites that have been identified, for many which are currently parkland, as you've pointed out. Approval is sought at this stage really only to conduct a feasibility study. And I'm sure if that feasibility study finds that, as you say, we will have the wrath of law and residents, we won't pursue that site. That process will be part of the planning designation on the long list, and we will work through that. Next slide, please. New Lido will by definition only benefit residents living close to the facility. That it really isn't true. You visit the Lido for the day, you absolutely refute that. People will travel a long way for a decent Lido, using public transport and other ways of getting around. And while obviously it'll be of significant immediate benefit to those living nearby. This is surely a point that kind of applies to anything we might build in the borough. But I think that we can make sure that it's accessible to as many people as possible. And on to the next one, which is to question why the decision to move ahead with the Lido was not introduced with substantial notice. We launched our manifesto in February of 2022, and then we won an absolutely huge majority. This commitment was in our manifesto, so I'm very surprised to see that it was a surprise to Councillor Gallant. The next slide questions a decision to move ahead without full costing suggests no real intention to build the facility. Whereas I've said already in Cabinet, we're not in the business of wasting public funds. This commits an amount of money to look at that feasibility study and to consider different options for what will be a phenomenal addition to our sporting facilities in the borough. I don't know where you've got your costings from, but you're absolutely correct. If it's, what did you say, 40 or 50 million, we wouldn't go ahead and build it. But our estimates are considerably lower than that. I think the question, well, there's just a nice picture of a Lido that isn't made of concrete, so we could consider something like that. On the next slide, there is to question if it's distraction from stalled plans to develop the Gurnall Leisure Centre. Well, it would be an incredibly cunning way to do that if, in fact, the plans to redevelop the Gurnall Leisure Centre were stalled. However, they are not. We're not stalled at all. We had a meeting of the Gurnall Sounding Board last week in this very room. We've recently engaged a senior project manager to lead on the next phase of the project, and it remains on track for a planning application to be submitted early in 2024. As I seem to be, the portfolio holder in charge of swimming, I can assure you that there is very little in my portfolio that I am more focused on and more determined to deliver for Ealing than the leisure centre on the site of Gurnall. What's next? Just question why no sporting facilities. Sorry, Jack, that was just another nice picture of a swimming pool. It's so hard, there's so many. If you go to that one there, why no sporting facilities apart from swimming are planned on the site of the proposed Lido facility, I would suggest that feel free to get involved. I found this one picture here. There seems to be sort of spin cycling going on at the end of the pool there. But if we could have a whole array of things that went alongside Lido, I would be very, very welcome to suggestion, because we have to kind of consider the economics of anything like this. And the more that we can put on the site, the more we can recoup our money and the more we can offer great facilities to the people of Ealing. So please do bring me your ideas. The next one is around questioning whether Ealing needs an outdoor swimming facility that can only be used for a few months of the year. I don't know, this seems quite dated. Most Lidos are now used all year round. I've certainly swum through the winter a number of our London Lidos, and you get everyone ranging from neoprene-clad triathletes charging up and down, I wouldn't get in their way, to this more intrepid people who like to dip and swim all year round and never happier when the mercury dips and the ice has to be broken for them to get in and have their swim. And, that is the kind of model we'll be looking at. We would be mad to build something of this scale and ambition that was only open for 2 months in the summer. We really are looking at something that leans into the hugely popular open water swimming, all the benefits of community benefits and social benefits of Lidos, but also the emergent cold water trend. And for those that haven't tried cold water swimming, I would recommend it. It boosts your immune system, gives you a natural high, improves your circulation, increases your libido apparently, burns calories, reduces stress, and is a great way of socializing and making new friends. This one is, again, to give negative details of any negative effect on the flora and fauna in the area caused. We're far too early to say or even comment on that. As I have said, there are different options around Lidos. They don't all have to be concrete holes in the ground. And I think it's Beckenham has created the Beckenham Lake, which is a hugely popular swimming facility. And we obviously have Serpentine, which I've swum in many times, and the Hampstead Ponds, all of which are now absolutely packed on a summer's day and certainly well used throughout the year as well. Expand on how data centers might be used. Oh, hang on. Oh, I've got this. I've missed one. Sorry, if you go that one there. Understand whether proposed Lido could be funded by monies from sport bodies. Absolutely. We will be talking to the sporting bodies that are involved. and our extremely brilliant officers who are sat behind me will be looking at how we can use a variety of sources to fund any pool. The next one is on data centers, which is absolutely fantastic. There are various startup companies and others who are doing exactly this and are desperate for new sites to use their technology because they offset their energy costs by heating pools, which really is a win-win for everyone. You reduce your energy costs completely and significantly reduce carbon emissions. There are some really interesting providers out there, and we would certainly be talking to them. And I just would love to finish by saying that thanks to the party of Councillor Gallant, many of our rivers and seas are really no longer viable for swimming. Our summers are getting hotter and hotter. And we have a government that's abandoned all effort to keep sewage out of our rivers and is doubling down on fossil fuels. I'd say it's more important than ever to invest in pools and open spaces where people can come together and swim and keep cool as our summers get even hotter. So with the main reason people swim outdoors being cited simply as a joy, I urge the committee to let this cabinet report swim upstream so we can all take further steps to bringing more joy to the people of Ealing. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councillor Newstub. So it's time for questions. Now, Councillor Newstub has spent quite a few minutes sort of challenging all the questions in the call-in. So please ask really specific and relevant questions, because I think we've covered this quite a lot and there's not a lot to ask. So I've got Councillor Rice, Councillor Conti. Oh, hang on. Well, Councillor Rice, go first.
Sorry, I had two lights came on. No reason, I don't know why. Sorry. Yes, so I think I'm really just touching really on the kind of the financial side, because I'm talking a bit about how the Lido might only be open for a few months per year. I mean, maybe it might be open all year round, but I certainly didn't see too many pictures of like rainy, cold, horrible days there with lots of people there. So I can imagine that normally Lidos, they would have fewer people there at during the winter months and other months. And we did talk about like the winter rules with the previous discussion looking at golf, that maybe fewer people do use these outdoor facilities at that time. So and the one interesting thing is for me is as talking about a Lido, it's got me for doing a bit of research into actually understanding what's around in the area. And so I work next to Hampstead Heath, and so I'm aware of what goes on there. But I didn't know that there were other Lidos in Hillingdon, in Richmond, in Covent Garden, and all these other places. So have we really thought about how we're going to compete with these other Lidos that are already so incredibly successful? How are we going to actually attract people to come to us, especially when we do have a limited period in the year, perhaps when we can get a lot of people along?
Would you go ahead? Thank you, Councillor Rice. I do really, if you take yourself down to Parliament Hill on a, your average December morning, there will be a significant cohort of people who are using it, and they have a sauna there and everyone there. So significant communities that build up around winter usage. So I think we're confident in that. You will, of course, get a really hot day and everyone's at the Lido. And when I recently went to Hillingdon to have a look and film a small video, they were running 3 sessions throughout the day. So there are multiple opportunities to make that money. But I completely take your point. We do not want to be doing anything that is not financially viable. And that will absolutely be costed in and be part of the planning. The people either side of me are much more experienced at this, and we obviously won't do anything that endangers the financial position of the council. And actually, in actual fact, yes, there is one at Hillingdon, but you'll know from all the time that we all spent there during the Uxbridge by-elections, it's pretty hard to get to. It's a pretty long way away. It's actually West London is really, really underserved for outdoor swimming. So I feel really confident that while we'll be building something primarily for the people of Ealing, that I think will be, a really, really fantastic resource and be really proud of. I think we will also get people to West London. There is, in fact, a campaign called the West London Lido campaign, who are specifically And I didn't set them up just in order to be able to say this. They've been campaigning for a very long time because there is such a significant lack of open water swimming in West London. But thanks for your question.
Councillor Conti.
Thank you. It was just on the not the profitability, but whether any of the Lidos that are run by local authorities in London, do they break even? Are any of them run at a loss? And if they're not, are any of them tacked on to other sporting facilities? I've never been to the one at Hillingdon, so I don't know what that's like. But are there other sporting facilities on the site that make that viable? And then my second question on costs was: I know you mentioned that the 40 and 50 million pound figure wasn't something that you felt that what the end up cost would be. I'm just wondering what is an acceptable figure that at which point the council think actually that this may end up being too much to construct it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer that at this stage. And I think we'd need to look at, and this is really what this is about, is that feasibility study is not only on location, it's on the finances and the capital expenditure versus the long-term return that we could expect. I can't speak for all the London Lidos. I certainly know that they are successful in return. A number of them are successful in return profit back to the councils. That's usually the funding model where you have an operator who runs it. And the money goes back to the council. Whether that's the case for all of them and whether that takes into account the build, these are all things that we need to look at. I would say that Hillingdon is co-located with their indoor pool and their gyms, and that would presumably have some offset, although theirs was a traditional Lido that everything else was built around it. So I think there are so many different models, it's quite hard to predict. Clearly co-locating with another major leisure facility would be advantageous cost-wise, and also kind of that density of getting people there. But equally, then you offset a wider proportion of people being able to access a resource from across the borough. I would say that Lidos traditionally are very you don't tend to get sort of fancy indoor changing rooms. They're used by lots and lots and lots of people in the summer who, it's warm and they don't mind. And then the people who use them throughout the rest of the year are frankly pretty low maintenance. So you'll often get, outdoor huts and that sort of thing where, you're not, obviously don't have a roof, but where you have lower infrastructure costs. So all of that will be looked at, but we would expect it to cost significantly less than, say, a leisure centre on the site of Gurnell, for example.
Good. Councillor Ball.
Yes, so I visited Hillingdon Lido last month, so I had a very enjoyable day there. So I'm certainly not coming from a place of hostility to Lidos. But two very brief questions, if I may, Chair. So first one is, at the Local Development Plan Advisory Committee, there was some discussion of it, and Chris Bunting helpfully ruled out Ealing Common as a site. But why were there so many sites on the long list, including some which just weren't remotely feasible? And what are the realistic sites going forward? What's the real shortlist going forward? And then the other one was, really following on from Payo's question, in terms of the funding, is the administration committed to going ahead with this, even if it's a significant cost to council taxpayers, or is it essentially something that if you can make it work with a data centre or with grants, then it's a nice thing to have, but we wouldn't be putting a lot of our money in it?
I think if I answer them in reverse, I think I don't want to be disingenuously saying, well, if we can't make it work, it was a nice thing to have, and it was worth a press release. We are very serious about investigating and enabling a Lido within the borough, and there are a huge number of sources for that. Some of which may be able to be rolled into the wider regional park conversations that we had about attracting funding to the borough. But we're clearly not going to plough on with something, at all costs if the economic climate changes, or it would be something that was destabilizing to the finances of the council. We are in a very fortunate position in that we have officers who run and help us run the council very effectively. We're not, but we equally know that public finances are made from year to year, and it's extremely precarious, and we have to make decisions as we go along. It's very hard to make long-term decisions, but sometimes we want to build infrastructure. You at least have to set out that vision and then corral everything to make that happen. But we're not going to do things that are destabilizing to the essential services that we provide to our residents and in particular our most vulnerable residents. I had heard that there was some discussion around that long list, and in reality, we're not going to put it on common land. I think the long list was there to provoke interest and to create debate about where people might want it to be cited. It wasn't just intended to be a sort of a fairyland list of completely unattainable sites, but I think it has initiated discussion about where it might be cited in the borough, for example. Where do we have fewer amenities? Is there appetite in Southall, for example, or do we create a central hub of existing pools? I think there are so many questions around this that it was intended to create that debate, and it has, which is great. It's got a lot of people talking, a lot of people really excited.
Thank you, Councillor Wesson.
Thank you, Chair. This is an example to my mind of a call-in that could have been an email, but seeing as we're all here, there is one particular line in the call-in request that I, as a Pitshanger Ward councillor, take great exception to. It suggests that the Lido is simply a distraction from stalled plans to redevelop the Gurnell Leisure Centre. Would the Cabinet member agree with me that this is greatly offensive to our officers, the people from the community and the councillors who've been working so hard to co-produce the new Gurnell plan since the election last year? As recently as last week, we were in this very room hearing that the planning application would be submitted in February of 2024. That doesn't sound like a stalled plan to me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Weston. Absolutely. I mean, it is, we have we are incredibly fortunate in the caliber and dedication of the officers who are either side of me, and they have been working tirelessly, as I know you have, and talking to stakeholders and residents around getting this delivered. These kinds of projects are big and they are difficult and they take time and they take a great deal of far brighter minds than mine to bring to fruition, but we really are getting there. And the provision of the leisure centre, as I said, is so absolutely front and centre of my priorities and the priorities of the administration, because we know that the loss of Gurnell blew a hole in our borough, and we have to do everything that we can do to make sure that no more generations of children go without swimming lessons or having to compromise on their ability to swim. And it is important also to say on that is that we do not envisage a like-for-like replacement of Gurnell. We want to build something far more ambitious, far more community-focused, that has a far greater range of services that will be there for decades to come. And it is an incredibly exciting project to be working on, and I don't think this in any way distracts from it, because, as I said, we've got great officers. We've got people in who are focusing on this. We've managed to secure one of the most sought after project managers within the council to work on this. So, and they will be working, really hard to make sure that the community is involved in all of those stages of planning, but really that we just get on with it and make sure that we deliver a pool for people of Ealing. Thank you.
Final question from Councillor Cordier.
My question is taken by Councillor Wesson and partly Councillor Ball about the indoor Lido. The little question I've left with is Councillor Gallant mentioned. He has also mentioned in the call-in about the environmental risk to flora and fauna. Do you think there will be any risks to animals and to the species?
Thank you. Do you want to put your brilliant? Thank you. That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think everything that we do has to have that built in as a consideration. And I think, we are, as the previous call-in hopefully showed, that commitment to kind of trying to balance the needs of our environmental crisis and our commitment to making a real difference as far as we can do as a borough, a small and beautiful part of West London, to the climate crisis are very, very real. But equally, we have to have progress, and we have to create facilities for our communities to use, particularly ones as important as this, which be used by children and have great health outcomes. Any decisions we made will be in significant analysis and of that. So it's hard to know what impact there might be now, but we would hope that we'll be able to mitigate and offset any of those impacts, and to make everything as low impact as possible, and look at those environmental measures around building materials and obviously the ways in which we can do energy exchange with servers and anything else that we can bring to bear that will reduce the environmental impact of that pool. Thanks for the question.
Okay, I've got one question before we go to the summing up, and it's one really for Councillor Gallant. Might be unfair on him, but the call-in was made by both political parties. Can you give any clue why the Liberal Democrats are not presenting at the call-in or even staying in the room for the call-in? Unless you could help me.
Chair, that's a fair question. I've had extensive conversations with our Lib Dem colleagues about this call-in, and we as we wrote the call-in request together. This is in early stages. I agree, it's in early stages, and they felt that it was sufficient for me to represent both parties' interests on this call-in.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Weston's just asked for one more question, and then we'll go to the
Yeah,
summing.
Councillor Gallant, I'm frankly surprised that you've had the gall to call in this cabinet report, to be honest. As a Pitshanger resident recently told me, Tory-run Hillingdon Council made, and I quote, some terrible mistakes in terms of heating, changing, booking lifeguards and lanes at its Lido when it was initially opened. Wouldn't you agree, therefore, that the cabinet beginning a conversation about this at a very early stage is in fact the wise option?
Well, Councillor, I'm frightfully sorry, but I shall call in when I want to. I made the request properly. It was submitted to Democratic Services and accepted. And that is our job, to call these things into question. You mentioned Hillingdon. The leader of the council, the portfolio holder, went to Hillingdon, stood in front of it on a lovely summer's day and cited it as the absolute example that Ealing would like to emulate. So I'm looking at that rather than teething problems that they may have had at the point of construction.
Okay, thank you. That's it for the questions. We are now going to proceed to the summings up. So, Councillor Gallant.
Is that me? That's me first, is it, Chair? Or I thought it was the
debate after. Coming up. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Well, with pleasure. Thank you very much. So thank you very much. The portfolio holder has got great enthusiasm for this project, and I admire enthusiasm. But as Councillor Rice mentioned, all the photographs that went up with these beautiful swimming pools, we don't quite know where they all were, but they're all beautiful summer's day, crystal clear blue things. And if I look at that, I got drunk on that wonderful sort of array of images. But as she so rightly said, there wasn't one taken on, December the 28th in the middle of rain or sleet, showing lots and lots of users inside that pool enjoying the very, very cold weather and the cold water. And if we may go back actually to the previous debate, it was spoken about how few users there were at the golf club. Well, I mean, obviously there are going to be very, very few users of a Lido in the cold months, which makes it a rather frivolous project. But it doesn't end there, the frivolity. She bats away serious concerns. To question whether officers advised that a Lido facility could ever be built on Ealing's public parks or common land. Now, I asked her this question in full council, in front of the public. I asked her this question: could it be built, genuinely built, on places like Ealing Common, Acton Park, Lammas Park, Walpole Park, Acton, Southall Park, North Isle Fish Ponds, You know, and she said, yes, there aren't any other sites apart from the 2 data centers and Perivale Park Golf Club. So now she's saying, well, we weren't quite serious about all those places. After all, we're not really going to build it there. We'll be looking for other places. That doesn't give me great confidence in that initial scoping exercise. And by the way, I'll come back to this point. The scoping exercise that may well be put through tonight costs 250,000. That is proper money. Ealing's a very big borough. You know, it takes a long time to travel across it, especially when there's traffic. If I lived in East Acton and the Lido's built in North Isle playing fields, fish ponds rather, it could take me an hour to get there. So it's a genuine concern that it's not really something that is going to be for everybody. What else? Oh, well, you know, there's hundreds of points I could make. I'm not quite sure whether Lido is actually open space. What I'm certain about is that the assessment, the way this was assessed, the need for this was assessed, it wasn't shown that a Lido would actually answer the need for the help for those health outcomes, would not actually genuinely contribute to that. And I think that, you know, that whereas indoor swimming space, which is absolutely useful all the time, is a genuine necessity, a Lido is like icing on the cake. It's a bit of a luxury. There are just so many uncertainties in this project. I don't think it's worth spending £250,000 on this fanciful project that probably won't happen.
Councillor Gallant. Councillor
Can I like get the vibe of the room? Do you think Councillor Gallant has finished patronising me yet, or do you think he could have any more if we gave him a bit more time? My frivolity and my enthusiasm. This is a serious commitment that we've made. We made it in our manifesto. As I've reminded people, we got a huge majority. Probably not everyone was only voting on the Lido, but it was in there and we're serious about it. So I think this could be a wonderful opportunity to augment the brilliant work that we will deliver on the site of Gurnell. And actually, I think we should be thinking about the needs of our residents now and future years rather than opposing everything and taking those steps to really, really invest in our infrastructure. This is what we do as a administration. We don't want things to stay the same. We want to improve things for the people of Ealing. So I commend you all to not refer this back to Cabinet. And I am very, very, very willing to provide lots and lots of pictures of people swimming in freezing cold weather, miserable rain, going up and down, training for their triathlons. And I will endeavour to do that because it is a huge and growing sport that people are enjoying all year round, that brings phenomenal health benefits, as well as all the social and family benefit and community benefits concentrated in the summer months. And I would suggest that the analysis of Councillor Gallant are outdated and haven't taken into account the way that people have changed in their relationship to swimming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the summings up. So Councillor Newstab, I'm going to ask you to leave the room and then we'll begin the debate. Go on. Okay, let's crack on. It's late. So Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess first I have a few thoughts. I first of all want to congratulate Councillor Gallant for the kind of Shakespearean vigour which he brought his call in. I do hope Greg Hands was listening to that. I'm also intrigued that he kind of confirmed that the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats are kind of have revived their coalition in the council, and he's now speaking on their behalf, which I must say was news to me. I'm sure Councillor Malcolm will be pleased with that. But as I say, I think Councillor Weston was kind of broadly right in his analysis that a lot of the kind of the content in the call-in paper were essentially questions that he could have asked either the portfolio holder or the officers. I think we all appreciate and agree that call-ins can be a useful tool to hold the executive to account. I guess I just encourage the Conservatives and the Liberals to, I guess, regulate their excitability and really make sure that they're kind of honing on real key strategic issues rather than like every single decision that the executive are making. I'm personally satisfied with Councillor Newsub's responses. I think there was a comprehensive response. As she says, it was in our manifesto. Residents have had over 18 months to kind of digest that particular commitment. So I don't think it would have come as a sudden surprise to them. So I'd say I'd very much support upholding the initial decision. Although I will say the only suggestion that I'd make is that Councillor Newsub takes Councillor Gallant, maybe in November or December, to a outdoor Lido, to to whichever one they like, to really kind of maybe go for a swim themselves, just to see how a facility like that can be enjoyed all year round.
Thank you. I'm sure. Yes. Anyway, Councillor Ball.
Thank you. Yeah, so firstly, the rules were changed a few years ago to show that for a call-in to come before you, it needs both of the opposition groups to agree to it. So, there may be call-ins where one opposition group is more enthusiastic than the other, but we need to agree in order for it to come forward. So hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, a Lido would be a good thing for the borough, but is it a key priority at such difficult times for local government finance all over the country, but for Ealing in particular? So probably not. So a Lido, for a Lido to be positive, it would need to stack up in capital and revenue terms. So, the ideas like the data center, potential grants we can get. I welcome the portfolio holders' response to my question on funding when she seemed to indicate there wasn't going to be a blank check for it, that it was something, there was an understanding from her that is something that does need to stack up financially, and I think that is hugely important. I don't think it's supportable if the project is overwhelmingly paid for out of council taxpayers' funds. And I think the other aspect is the site. I mean, clearly the site makes a huge difference. I mean, so clearly, I voted against upholding the previous item. So if a Lido was going to be built on Perivale Park golf course, then I'd be against that. And there are other potential sites where sensitive sites where it could be problematic. I think Ealing Common's already been ruled out, so we can rest assured it won't be there. But yeah, I think it was unnecessary for the long list to be published with which caused worry in a lot of places around the borough that weren't remotely serious sites. So I think that was a bit of a misstep. But I think we can look forward as the scheme progresses. We can look at what site is proposed, and we can weigh up the pros and cons based on what site we end up with. So yeah, I won't be voting to not uphold it.
Okay, Councillor Weston.
I'm not sure about the opposition parties, but I want to live in a borough where if you have a good idea, you have the support to explore it further. And we should have a council that matches the ambitions of residents. I think this Lido proposal is worthy for further exploration. So I'll be voting against differ and delay with the Tories and Lib Dems and for progressing this plan.
Councillor Conti.
So I think, as we heard tonight, in terms of the number of locations, obviously some of the ones that were proposed on the long list, such as Ealing Common, aren't going forward or aren't being proposed any longer. I just wonder whether actually a more refined list of locations would have been a more sensible point. That sort of reconciliation exercise probably should have been done before any of this was published. Whether that then makes the feasibility studies that are going ahead be cheaper than the £250,000 being proposed if we're looking at less sites potentially, and maybe that work should probably have been done before this came to cabinet. Exploring ideas is great, Councillor Weston, but obviously it comes with a £250,000 price tag. So there is money that, taxpayers' money that's going to be spent on developing this. I know Councillor Newsop has also said that, there isn't a blank check, but it isn't articulated well in the report in terms of what those parameters are, in terms of ensuring that, what is going to be the maximum the council are prepared to spend, etc. So I think those elements probably should be in the report before the feasibility study goes ahead. So there's a clearer parameters in terms of how that's worked up.
Okay, let's pull this. Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to add that I'm utterly disappointed with Councillor Gallant when he at the end said that having a Lido is too luxurious for our residents, which is such a shame that he is using this specific word. We are looking so highly at our residents. We love our borough, we love our residents. This is why we're so ambitious, and we want a Lido for everyone to enjoy and for everyone to have a better activity and better health in our borough.
That's it. Thank you very much. So we're going to proceed to conclusion. So the confusing debate and confusing contributions, because Councillor Gallant clearly is opposed to a Lido, full stop. Doesn't want it, doesn't want it. Councillor Conti's got a much more refined take on it. Councillor Ball is in favour, even though he co-signed the call-in, or his colleagues did. So it's bewildering. I have to say my take on it is this is just a smoke screen to try and rubbish administration over Ganell. Councillor Weston's point. That's the key point in all of this. It's clearly in the manifesto. It's a commitment from the administration. They want it's a scoping exercise. If there's the next stage will be a proposal which is costed and there's a location, that's when you call in the item. It is not now. I'm bewildered how this was accepted to be called in. You used the word frivolous in your contribution. I think this is a frivolous call in. You asked questions at full council, you asked questions at cabinet, and you could have emailed your contributions to the portfolio holder, and then we go forward. So with that in mind, I am going to propose that we uphold the decision, and I'd like the committee to vote in favour. Well, all those in favour show, sorry. All those against? Thank you very much. So the decision has been to uphold the cabinet decision. Now, we still have some items of business. Sorry, Councillor Haley. We have the 3 scrutiny reports, scrutiny panels 2, 3, and 4, and the chairs are all here, which is very nice. And we're going to go by numbers. Now, it is late. Everybody should have read the reports, but if you could just talk briefly to your panel and any recommendations you particularly want to comment on. So we're going to start off with Scrutiny Panel 2, which is the recovery from the pandemic, chaired by Councillor Ball. Over to you, John. Or if somebody else is ready, they can do it.
Sorry about that.
Okay, we'll jump on Councillor Rice. Do you want to go first?
Okay, well, we'll try and get on with it. Right, and so, yeah, so okay, it's a huge area, regrow, rewild, recycle. It's hard enough to pronounce, let alone just really look into what we're going to talk about. And I suppose, in one sense, it can feel like it's a kind of sequel to the climate emergency stuff that we did, but it's also very much a sequel to the active citizenship scrutiny work that went on, because I think really what's the real central point in the whole what we discussed was looking at volunteering and just looking at how our volunteers are helping and how we can support our volunteers. We were really blessed by having a co-opted member of the panel. We had someone from the Ealing Parks Foundation who were just fantastic, and he's also chair of Ealing Allotments, and that's Paul Carter. And so he gave a lot of really good, helpful contributions as we went along. We started out looking at the biodiversity action plan that's already been mentioned tonight. One thing that really is a real highlight from that was the fact that we're going to be introducing the beavers. And so Dr. Sean McCormack came along to speak to us. He is the utter hero of this borough, the work that he's doing and really leading on this item. And when it came to the beavers, I agreed to try and go into it putting both sides of the argument, and I tried to put that across myself. But on the night, no one else wanted to actually put across any points of view against. Everyone was completely enthusiastic and very much in favour. So that was really good to see. That was real one big success story there. Although what did come out that we did need to do a lot more to support our volunteers who are helping us in order to fulfil the biodiversity action plan, because we can't do it on our own as a council. We need the people out there to help us. And then we went on to trees, which I've already mentioned a bit about tonight, looking at trees, but just actually understanding what the kind of how we're going to maintain our trees, the costs involved, the work that we need to do in order to make sure that we have the right trees in place. And one thing we did do throughout the whole of this panel is do a lot of field work as well, in terms of do site visits to our different places. You know, go to a place like Warren Farm, go to allotments. I got involved in planting a tree in my own ward. And so we just did a lot of work just seeing what's going on with trees, what's going on with our volunteers in terms of planting, in terms of biodiversity as well. And so that was really helpful to look at the trees, and it was amazing. You could devote a whole meeting to that, and that was really interesting. But then we went on to the recycling side, and so another field trip was involved there. And so we did actually go down in the minibus to go to the recycling facility down in Crayford. And that was another really good opportunity to actually see how everything's recycled. So you put real faith in our system, that some people think, oh, you put it into the bin, maybe it just gets sent to landfill, but no, it doesn't. It goes through the MRF, and you can just see the process it goes through. Everything does get recycled. Everything works, and that was a really good chance to understand. And so we could actually answer the queries from residents. And something I will actually really push is that hopefully we will have maybe some regular trips to go down there, because I think that a lot of officers joined us. I think a lot of officers, a lot of councillors need the chance to actually go and see what's going on. So I think there are some people here in the room who really found that as exciting as I did. And so just really what it comes down to recommendations, it does just come down to making sure that that our volunteers are supported, make sure that publicity is out there so that we can support the volunteers, that we can support our residents. And when it just and that we do understand what's going on with recycling. So that's really what it comes down to. And I did mention Warren Farm, so hopefully we are going to put whatever signage we can put in there, which is in the recommendations, in order so that people don't walk all over the skylarks, because I didn't know about skylarks when I first went there to Warren Farm, and so we do need to put in our bit there as well. So that's where I am on that. So thank you.
You, Councillor Rice, although I'm pretty sure there are some signs about the skylarks on Warren Farm. Anyway, we're not going to go to Warren Farm. We're not going to. There are. Any questions, Councillor Rice? No, it's late, isn't it? Councillor Ball, over to your panel.
Yeah, sorry about that. So it wasn't really pleasure to be. Yeah, so it was a very useful panel. We had a lot of external experts from the business community and also from academic organisations that came in and actually bounced ideas off each other within the meetings. And we also went on site visits, including a day when we visited a whole load of businesses right from North Acton to Southall, right across the borough, which is really useful. So broad picture, there is the recovery from the pandemic in different sectors has been very patchy, and there's still a lot of problems in the retail, hospitality, construction industries. There were some useful initiatives that came forward. There was one in particular from the Westmont Enterprise Hub, which is part of UWL, and as a result of a conversation that had in the meeting, there's a proposal for them to develop a scheme to try to divert young people who are, coming to the attention of criminal justice system into entrepreneurship. So, giving people a completely different potential way forward. So we came across, as well as some new initiatives coming out, we came across quite a lot of existing initiatives to try to get people into work and to help small businesses, but we found that it was quite patchy. They're provided by a lot of different organisations. So I think a lot of it is about better communication, so that job seekers and small businesses find out more about these different aspects. There's some issues of areas of well-paid work where training's available, but nobody kind of knows what it is and isn't taking it up. So dry lining in the construction industry. was one of the things that we found out about. So there's again a signposting thing of pointing out to people where there are well-paid job opportunities in the borough with training, so people who are unskilled can get trained and get into them. I think probably final thing to mention is one thing that came up a lot was crime, the effect of crime on particularly retail businesses. So shoplifting, aggressive shoplifting, antisocial behaviour. So it's causing some retail workers to leave the industry altogether. And we spoke to one coffee shop owner who said that if she didn't have like family in the area, so she knew the families of the people causing the antisocial behaviour, then she wouldn't have been able to carry on in business. It would have just destroyed the business. So I think there's a lot of work with the police, council's community safety people, and also the bids in the town centres that have them to try to address some of those really difficult issues on the high streets. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Any questions or comments? No. Okay. Well, I congratulate you on going to the Fox as one of your site visits. You're always welcome to Hammer Broadway. Yeah.
Local business that needs
it really does. It really does. Fantastic. So the final, Philip Summers.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll keep this very brief. I'm very aware of the time and we want to go home. So yeah, it was a very interesting, genuinely affordable housing scrutiny panel. Particular, obviously, it was a massive year economically. The picture completely changed with the disastrous budget and the interest rates and inflation was already going up at that point. But inflation, interest rates, labour costs have had a massive impact. But at the end of the year, we were still confident that the council is still on target to deliver the 4,000 genuinely affordable homes by 2026, despite current difficulties. Just to raise point out a couple of recommendations. Recommendation 10 and recommendation 12, both regarding the Building Safety Act. Obviously, not one other factor that has also hit the viability of housing is the recommendation that you have to have two, or not the recommendation, the insistence you have to have two stairwells in a building above a certain height, and that has had a major impact on viability. But also the Building Safety Act, which will address a lot of the issues that sort of came up out of the Grenfell issue. But there's also, we found out during the panel that there's a shortage of sort of trained people in building safety. So the council, needs to get more and more apprenticeships and reach out to those people recruiting in our department. And also recommendation 8 was about regenerating our own housing stock to ensure it's safe for everyone. Obviously, we know all the issues of mold and other very topical issues. And one thing that's not mentioned in the recommendations, but we also had housing associations, speak to us, and we're very sort of keen, or I was personally very keen, that those housing associations look at regenerating their stock. For example, in my ward, Manor-Gate Estate, which is sort of owned by Metropolitan Thames Valley Housing Association, is seen better days and probably wasn't that greatly designed in the first place. So regenerating, but also uplift of numbers would help us to hit those targets and just improve the quality of housing as well as the affordability in the borough. But yeah, thanks to all those who took part. I haven't mentioned the site visit we did to Copley, but that was also really interesting to go there.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Summers. Any questions, comments? No. Okay, so thank you very much. So it's up to the committee now to approve the 3 reports. Excellent. Thank you. Good. Next stage for the reports is, from when we did last time, it's going to go to the officers who are going to take put their comments to the recommendations and be presented to Cabinet, I guess, a little bit later on in the year. Right. One last item of business, which is the work plan. work program. If hopefully everyone's seen it, just two things I want to flag up. One is that next November we have two OSC meetings, and the meeting of the 9th will now be looking at the budget. If you remember, we were hoping to look at some budget tonight. Even pre the call-ins, it was worked out with the officers that it was a bit too early to do that. So hopefully they have something concrete and helpful for us to look at on the 9th of November. And the other thing is that we are looking in March, on the 28th of March, to look at the Youth Justice Service reports that we all were briefed on 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I don't quite know how that's going to look, but that's what we're looking to do in March. I think Sam is going to interject.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, for the budget item, you'll see that that's scheduled for a meeting we'd normally have call-in only, right? So if a call-in comes in, we'll do that instead. And the budget item isn't going to be an OSC meeting in public. It's going to be more of an informal workshop. As I think, and the intention of it is that we, we take the time that we've already put aside for it, and we do it in that format. And really, it's to get us sort of match fit ready for the budget in March. It's to introduce some concepts and some ideas, and perhaps give a view as to sort of perhaps where we are in certain things. But it was, my ambition has been for this committee to look at the budget a lot earlier in the year, and I think we are taking tentative steps towards that. I think the difficulty we always have, but it's certainly become even harder in recent years, is that because we sort of live year by year and year to year in terms of settlements and things, it's very difficult to get to a position where we're having any confidence in the numbers sort of this early on in the year. So hopefully in the near future we'll be in a position where we will have a bit of longer term funding in place, so we'll be able to do this in a lot more of a constructive way. But I think at the moment that is progress compared to where we've been in previous years, where we've just given the budget, massive document, have a look at it the day before cabinet looks at it, or whenever we schedule it in, and there's not a lot of time to really go through that. So it's really just to make sure we're all really ready to look at that next year.
I mean, just to reiterate, I mean, last year we did the budget scrutiny after a long call-in, 1 or 2 days before it was going to budget. So I don't think we added any value whatsoever. This is an attempt. We don't know if it's going to work, to really try and help and give value to the scrutiny process. I've got Councillor Ball and Kelly who want to make contributions. Councillor Ball.
Yeah, just very briefly. So Sam and I were both at the London Scrutiny Network that was talking about financial scrutiny, and the kind of the best practice is to have budget scrutiny kind of going all year round. So we've got a long way to go for that, but certainly I welcome it that we're moving much earlier than we've ever done before. So it's definitely progress. Yeah.
Councillor Ball, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, just very useful to get a flavour of how you're going to do next week. But is it fair to say it will be held in camera, the budget meeting, or is it a public meeting? Because obviously is it gold papers?
No, it won't be held as a traditional OAC meeting. It's a workshop, so it'll be a behind closed doors workshop with the committee. It's going to be run by the Strategic Director of Resources.
So being camera, it won't go live.
Oh, sorry. Do you mean whether it's going to be in person or
no, whether it's
streamed? Do you mean?
Is it a public meeting?
Well, no. It's not. It's not a public meeting,
Fine,
and that's not the sort of format we're looking for. We're looking for something a bit more informal, not sitting around a committee table.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Almost more of a training session / workshop hybrid.
But everyone will be asked to attend in person. As you all know, I'm not a fan of hybrid anymore, and it's just better, as tonight showed, for us all to be in the room and to be bouncing off each other rather than being on the screen off camera. So it will be in person. So there will be a meeting on the 9th of November. Thank you. Right, that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much. There's a lot